Right, start recording in three, two, and one. All right, and welcome back to the Reserve Squad Midweek Show, a soccer podcast covering all things in the EPL from a bench perspective. I'm your host Ben, and this is a Euros podcast now, Euros and I guess USA. So I'm going to talk about what has happened since the last time I did this. I think we were only through a few games, and now we're into round three, so I have missed a little bit. So it's mostly going to just be kind of a rundown on what has happened. It's not going to be nearly as in depth as usual. And then I will talk about what happened in the first U.S. game. U.S. did take on Bolivia, a game that we were expected to win, and I want to say we basically got probably what we should have expected. To be honest, we probably could have it probably could have been a higher score line. There were some positives and some anyone that's been following this team over the last few years, you probably got what you would have expected. To be honest, and I don't know. We'll see what the next game versus Panama brings us, and if that goes well, the Panama didn't look too bad versus Uruguay. To be honest, I'll put a caveat there. But if that goes well, maybe the game versus Uruguay will be for the group, and US will have already advanced, which was basically the least thing going into this was just qualify to get out of the group, and it looks like we're probably going to at least be able to do that. But you still have to take on Panama, and if that doesn't go well, then the game versus Uruguay does matter. And as I'll get to later on, I don't really know if we have much of a shot for versus them. But I'll get to that later. I will get started with the Euros, and yeah, not much has happened since the last time I did an episode, just kind of tongue in cheek. So we are into round three. Everyone's played two games now, and it does feel like there is only one consensus good team, which is not usually a good thing when everyone kind of rallies around the same kind of opinion mid tournament, and it is Spain, and it's the team that I actually did back pre tournament. And again, normally this would make you feel good about a pick that you've made. I feel like there was kind of a census a little bit last year around Italy. It wasn't England, so that actually did pan out. Uh, the only things that I am a little cautious about is mostly just it's not good for a consensus to rally around like that. Just in general, in my opinion, just how I've experienced things. But it's also just e- even with Spain being really good, who knows if they go up against a hot goalkeeper? It looks like they could possibly get into one of the harder groups. The way that the brackets is kind of working out is really goofy again, where you could have Spain, France, and Portugal all in the same bracket, where England could possibly be on the other side again. I don't necessarily know if we'll see that, but at least I've seen some mock-ups so far, and it looks like that could potentially be the case. Uh, and it's just that is for the most part, it just feels no one really is infallible or invincible. And the other contenders, France haven't scored a goal this tournament yet. They won a game because of an Mbappe created an own goal, and we don't know if Mbappe will be able to go or not. He was apparently on the bench. He wasn't wearing any kind of protective gear, so it looks like he didn't necessarily need surgery or anything like that. So maybe he will be able to go. But even then, France looked a little disjointed a little bit in their first game versus Austria. Portugal maybe do feel the closest talent wise, maybe even above Spain talent wise. But again, Roberto Martinez, I thought he got the first game wrong. So I still have some doubts a little bit about him, and I will go over what they did in their first game and their second game were definitely more impressive versus Turkey. Then again, Turkey weren't nearly as good as Czech Republic or Czechia. And then England, England's the team that technically did go into this as the actual favorites, the betting favorites, and I think for laughs, people can still talk them up. Who knows? I remember in 26 was it 2016? It was when Portugal won. They were one of the worst teams in the entire tournament. They were able to actually get by on the last match day, where they basically were finished in third in their group, and they did go on to actually win the whole thing. I think they beat France in the final when that was even a bad game as well. So yeah, who knows? This can very easily turn. Someone can get an injury. Again, Spain are relying on two very young players. Spain already have a couple injuries as well. It looks like Nacho picked out something, but Laporte was able to fill in. Uh, but I'll get into that a little bit. Oh, the other one is Germany. Germany is the other one that people have really talked about. Uh, Germany did look a little. They showed some cracks a little bit for Switzerland, and it feels like uh, before the Switzerland game, Musiala was maybe the consensus player for player of the tournament. Coming into this, but I thought he got a little. Basically, he just got a little unlucky. I think for Switzerland, but I'll get to that game as well. Just a little poor. I thought Switzerland were the first team to really actually take out the Tony Cruz game plan. They did a really good job of having Granit Xhaka and Frelo just kind of mark Cruz out of the picture. I thought they put a little more emphasis on making Rudiger and Ta, the two center backs, have the ball a little bit more. It felt it got to the point where the last couple of games you have seen Florian Wirtz and Musiala clash in the same way that Phil Foden and Jude Bellingham have for England, in my opinion, where both kind of want to play on a little bit on the left. But like you have to fill in one on the right side. It doesn't feel like Wirtz was necessarily comfortable playing on the right, and they don't really have a good replacement for there. This was a time when Switzerland were very good at making Kimmich try to be that right wing outlet, and if they lost the ball or if a cross went off and it wasn't and a cross was blocked or something, you can maybe run someone on Kimmich's side, and they were doing that really well with this guy Indoy, which I'll get to that game a little bit later on. But yeah, I mean, out of nowhere, Switzerland almost won the group, and then if not, Fulkrug coming in, and to be fair, Nagelsmann did make some changes to change this up. He brought on Fulkrug when he needed to. He brought on David Raum. We hadn't even seen David Raum this tournament. Brought him on for Millistat, and it's Raum's cross that basically got the. It was a great delivery that found Fulkrug, and the Fulkrug was able to have a great header. And all of a sudden, Fulkrug through 3 games is kind of joint top scorer with only two. So that's another thing too. There's been a lot of goals this tournament, but not. It's been very shared. The goods have been distributed, I guess, evenly, as they say. I think Musiala has two, and then it's George's Mitik 23-year-old attacker from Metz, and then I think it's Ivan Swans of Slovakia, also on 2 goals, and then the other, basically the leading goal scorer or the Golden Boot winner at the moment, his own goal, which is not something that I would have expected. And then the other kind of fun little fact is everyone in Belgium's group now has 3 points, so everyone has won a game, which means just that entire group can be completely flipped if someone has a poor performance. Belgium can be out. Anyone in that group can be out. So we'll see. We'll see how that pans out. I guess either today or maybe it's tomorrow. I think it'll be tomorrow. So Belgium has a chance to still kind of make a statement in here. Kevin De Bruyne has looked very good. To be fair to him, Lukaku should probably be leading the leading the tournament in terms of goals. And he's probably leading the tournament in terms of missed chances because it's absolutely and remarkable he hasn't scored yet in almost like laughable fashion. Just and a lot of it has been misfortune. It hasn't necessarily been him just a whiffing. Now he has had his played his role and not necessarily bringing his finishing boots, but a couple of these he's been denied at least 2 goals for very close offside calls that just to the naked eye would not be called. And they do have the advanced VAR technology, and that's just kind of that's denied him. It's denied him 2 goals. Denied him one versus in the first game for Slovakia and denied him one here versus Romania. So that game is all to play for, or that group is all to play for. So if Belgium do advance, or depending on the bracket and kind of draw, they could maybe still make some noise just because talent wise they have it all. But at the back it is. Basically they can probably if they get the ball they can probably create some chances, but it doesn't feel they necessarily have, they do have a ball winner in Onana, but if it gets to a point where you have to make Kevin De Bruyne, Lukaku, and others try to like really press to win the ball back, I don't necessarily know if they can necessarily do that. and then defensively, they have been vulnerable in every game. It looks like one of the changes was they played Arthur Tiat uh, in uh, in this game versus Romania, and he possibly picked up an injury as well. I mean, Wout Faes does not necessarily look. He basically looks like the player that we saw the last time we saw Leicester in the EPL. He has some moments, and then he also has moments the other way where you go, oh, that's the reason why maybe Leicester were relegated. Or that's he just doesn't seem like he doesn't give a lot of confidence when he's got the ball at his feet or defending or marking. And other than him, yeah, they do have Vertonghen that they could that I think that is still on the bench, still someone that they can, rely on at least for leadership. But Belgium, at least at the back, is a bit of a worry, that's probably is going to be their a little bit of their downfall, and it is unfortunate because attacking wise, they have it all. At the back, and also the midfield has been disjointed, and it was interesting how Yuri Tielemans did not start the first game for Slovakia, and their midfield was an absolute mess. And then Tielemans came in and scored in the first few minutes of their game versus Romania. So that's kind of just setting it all up. I'm going to do a little more in depth about that. But another thing I wanted to talk about is I do think it is interesting how uh, I think because of the limited time, it's so much harder to get a team to play organized well and out of possession. It's pressing is an art form, as they say, and teams that do get it right can frustrate teams. I think a little bit more at the international level than at the club. But if you don't get it right, it's also easier to play through. So there has been a lot of talk about how the international game is not like club, and I think they talk a little bit about that. Another thing I've been wondering about: how much does experience matter, and I think it's team experience, not maybe not necessarily individual experience, because age definitely does factor in. And, if people with 30-year-old legs aren't going to necessarily be able to run as much without the ball. But I think the team experience is a big component. And one thing about you look at Spain, yes, Spain have a lot of youngsters, but they also, Pedri is only 21, but he featured in their entire Euros run 3 years ago. Uh, Fabian Ruiz, maybe not, but Rodri, Alvaro Morata featured 3 years ago, so they have a bit of a mix of pretty decent senior experience as well with some of the youth that they brought in. Uh, and I do think there is some of that. But another thing that's been very interesting is for at least as far as just looking how who's performed, in the as far as leagues go, it hasn't been English Premier teams, players. I think I'm wondering, could the legs be tired? Could it possibly, they're the only league that do play in the Christmas period. Now, I feel like I go into this rant every time there is an international tournament. I mean, there have been a few standout performances, but it's been like center backs. It's been, Ruben Diaz. It's been Akanji. It's been Aki. It's been, Man City players. There have been Christian Eriksen had a pretty good game versus Denmark, and obviously scored in his first game, so you can maybe use him, but he didn't get a lot of minutes for Man United. Bruno could maybe be the exception, and Kevin De Bruyne could be the exception. Kevin De Bruyne, missed half the season, so maybe he's not the best example. Cody Gakpo, I feel like he's played well for the Dutch, but he hasn't necessarily been really a standout performer. And but that said, the flip side is in Copa America, EPL players are starring. McAllister, Nunez, Enciso had a really good game yesterday for Paraguay. Munoz of Crystal Palace played well for Colombia. Jefferson Lerma, I think, scored yesterday for Colombia, and Julian Alvarez played well for the Argentina in their first game. So maybe it's just kind of a coincidence. Maybe some of the best kind of attacking players aren't maybe not in the EPL. I just thought that was a little bit interesting, but it's also interesting how spread out this tournament has been. Just as you look at the goal scored, you look at just who has performed. It's been a mix. Someone's had a really good game in one, and just kind of been taken out in the other. So no one's really been able to put two games together, at least so far. But maybe that's just a thing that normally happens. But anyways, that's my little rant. So I'm going to just kind of run down what happened since I last did a podcast, and then get into the U.S. game a little bit. And then there's it might even be a shorter episode than normal. We'll have to see. But since I last did one, we finally get a few upsets. So Romania shocked Ukraine. I was talking Ukraine up, and maybe maybe I shouldn't have. I didn't know anything about Romania, but I don't necessarily know how much that's necessarily on me. It would have been hard to find out about Romania. Other than just looking, at a on a stat sheet to kind of see what they've done, it's hard to actually follow some of these games. They've been on paywalls. But here, Seneci, in the 29th minute with a terrific strike, gets the ball, from the right and finishes a curler. It's a straight up gift by the keeper, Lunin, who I would have figured, he just had a really good season for Man United or for Real Madrid. Had to make some pretty big saves in the knockout rounds. Courtois ended up playing over him in the final, but Lunin had a pretty good season for Real Madrid, and he was technically their third string backup but he took the place over Kappa when Kappa returned and got healthy. So I was a bit surprised that he just really didn't look off it. It's a gift here. He basically just gives the ball away, right to Romania, and they do really well to create that into a chance, and it's a nice finish. And then the second goal by Marine is an equally nice finish, a nice strike from distance, but also it basically goes underneath the arms of Lunin. It's a poor dive, so it just sneaks under him. So there you go, 2-0 in a game that it felt like Ukraine had all the possession. It really had dominated, but it's just the quick strikes from Romania, and then they get they go direct again. They get a corner kick, and they take the corner kick quickly. And I think it's Sanucci again and Dennis Mann who work together. And I think it's Mann with some clever feet to go around basically two defenders, and then he fires a square ball that Dragos is able to put away. So again, this was a bit of a surprise, and I look a little foolish because one of the reasons I was hyping Ukraine was a lot of their players did have good club seasons, but maybe that's not necessarily maybe that doesn't always pan out. Their record coming into this I thought was pretty good as well, but Mudryk Mudryk has not had a good tournament so far. He's been creating a lot of danger, and it's just the end product has just been woeful, unfortunately. Um, the Antonin Dubravek, the big striker that did so well for Girona, he's had moments as well, but hasn't necessarily been able to put anything on net or anything dangerous. And Lunin was just really poor. Sudakov was someone I was looking forward to watching. He hasn't necessarily been that influential. I was expecting maybe Zinchenko to play in midfield for them a little bit, and he has been played as their fullback, and he hasn't necessarily been that great, at least defending. And in the second game, he actually got dunked on for one of the goals. But that said, he was also player of the game after that. He's so good with the ball at his feet. It is surprising that he does. Usually I looked for the last couple of games. He has been tried in midfield, and they do have Mikolenko, but this is just what the coach has decided to run with. But I have Ukraine's probably been the one team that I think I've been most kind of surprised by, as far as just kind of being a little disappointed. But it doesn't really matter because they were able to respond well in their second game. And again, that entire group, everyone has 3 points. So who the heck knows what is going to happen? Who's going to be left out or not? And then we get to Belgium, and Belgium lose to Slovakia, and this was the upset, the first real upset. Uh, Strands gets a goal in the 7th minute. Belgium easily could have been up 2 goals even before this. They started off well. I thought, again, Lukaku basically had a rivalry, against himself on trying to finish, the early start. But they were Slovakia was doing very, very well to press high. And maybe I don't necessarily know if they recognize something, pre-match or not. But Belgium really did struggle with this, and they get the goal by doing this. Jeremy Doku is their attacking kind of wing wide player, and he's forced to be all the way back to receive the ball on a throw in, and he's kind of cornered. And instead of just basically accepting his fate, and just it's time to just clear it, boot it upfield, maybe even kick it out of bounds. He tries to do something way too clever to escape out of pressure. He tries to do two touches to go around a defender that's near him to try to find a teammate, and he pulls it off. But the touch is just way behind phase, and he can't recover. Basically, giving the ball to Slovakia, right into the box, and then they basically create that into a goal. uh, and they make it count. And then I thought Martinez just got this entirely wrong. Now that said, Belgium easily could have won this. They could have scored 4 or 5, to be honest. But I did feel like not necessarily Martinez, Tedesco. Martinez, the former manager. I thought Tedesco got this wrong. Uh, the Carrasco was basically tried as the left back. They did have a couple injuries at the beginning of the tournament, so that kind of hurt them. Whoever they were going to play at left back, it might have been Munayer. He apparently wasn't able to go, so they were a little bit weak when it came to options, and they tried Carrasco, who isn't really a fullback. Mangala and Onana were basically played together in midfield. Mangala and Onana did not pair at all. They didn't feel comfortable at receiving the ball, neither of them. I really did feel Tielemans needed to play just to help them to build up and just kind of just keep the ball a little bit. Just none of the defenders looked comfortable with the ball, and Slovakia were very good at just keeping pressure, making the game just ugly and difficult. But that said, their attacking talent did shine in the second half, and again, just whether it was Doku, whether it was someone else that was playing on the wing, whether it's Kevin De Bruyne creating chances, Lukaku in the second half when Bakayoko when Alpindana came on, or even Trossard, just they created so many chances. And it was just remarkable that they weren't able to actually score in this game. Then Ampadada actually did come on, and Belgium finally did get the equalizer. And it's just it came onto a loose ball. He did open down. He did very well to run to it. It got to the byline, had a nice cutback, and then Lukaku had a very nice finish. And it was ruled out because they judged that he used his hand to control the ball, and they've got a chip in the ball now that they can tell when the ball has been touched with the hand or something when the ball's in the air. And it wasn't necessarily in the direct touch that led to the goal, but it kinda did. And so they ruled it out. There's a little controversy about that. Belgium also scored on a corner kick where Nana just towered over everyone, to just head the ball back, square it to that Lukaku was able to put it in, but Onana was judged to be offsides as well. And, it was just, again, no one really knows what to make, of Belgium, and, and there you go. It didn't feel like they deserved to lose that game, but the way that they lined up, it wasn't necessarily great. And then we get to France and Austria, and this was it wasn't necessarily an upset, but it was Austria were as good as advertised. There are a lot of people that were hyping them up. Ralph Ragnick, Austria, and yeah, they do lose, and it basically it's an own goal created by Mbappe. Mbappe does really well to get by the fullback, and then he just has a basically a cutback ball, and unfortunately, the defender just gets kind of wrong footed and trying to head it away, and basically heads it back into his own net. Uh, Mbappe also missed a 1v1 chance to make it 2-0. France were doing a pretty good job to actually the few times to actually escape Austria a little bit. I thought Teo Hernandez was doing really well in that respect. He was getting free. Uh, and again, this could have been France could have scored a couple, but also really did press well. And Magnon, the goalkeeper for France, needed to make some pretty big saves. The biggest chance of the game probably did come to I think Bumgarner, where there's just a direct ball and then a cross into the box, and it's a really clever clutch by the touch by the striker. Played Bumgarner in, and Manuel needed to be pretty big in that moment. The commentator said the man of the match was Conte, which kind of says it all as well. A couple of times when Saliba was actually getting outplayed, and again Austria were doing a decent job to at least keep pressure on the ball, no matter what. And when there were few times for turnovers and transitions, Austria were doing well to attack on the transition. We have seen a couple of teams that have been pretty decent out of the possession, but they just haven't really had the ability to go quickly. Austria looked like they had that, but at the end of the day, just maybe the attacking talent did let them down a little bit, though they were able to score 3 goals in their game versus Poland. So Austria have I think everyone that's won a game other than the Belgium group uh, has already qualified because of the way how they do the best third place teams. So I think Austria has with that win, is one of those, but, and it'll be interesting, 'cause one of the mock-ups I've seen is possibly Austria versus England, in the round of 16 game. So Ralf Rangnick versus England. Their pressing structure versus a midfield potentially of Declan Rice and Conor Gallagher. And we saw the way how England did not like anyone kind of running at them a little bit versus Denmark. That would not necessarily be the best matchup. But we'll have to see. But France, sticking on France, France did surprise me a little bit. It's not just that they did lose Mbappe. I think around like the 70th minute. Mbappe. This is the one game that Mbappe broke his nose. The midfield was shocking to see Conte and Rabiot play. But as we saw in their game versus the Netherlands, maybe the strategy behind it is Conte just really does look like he did not go to Saudi Arabia to retire. He still has his legs. And it's probably the best that he's looked in quite some time. And it looks like they're using Rabiot almost as like a defensive cover for Teo Hernandez. Teo Hernandez is almost running up and being their makeshift little wide outlet on the left side. And Rabiot's kind of staying back. And Rabiot has done a pretty good job, in my opinion, to have some link up plays. He hasn't necessarily been poor on the ball. I have been a little bit surprised just we haven't seen Camavinga get a start, or at least versus the Netherlands, we did see Chouameni. But we haven't seen the player that I was looking to watch in Zaire Emery. So I got that wrong a little bit. Another thing about France is Dembele has not necessarily been the best player for them in either of their two games, and I have been wondering uh, with the Mbappe injury that it just kind of highlights a little bit where someone like Christopher Nkunku did not make this team, and he was on the World Cup team before he got injured and had to be. I think it was Camavinga that actually ended up sliding into him in like a pre-game kind of or basically in a camp in a pre-camp kind of injury right before the tournament. So he was good enough to make the squad then. Now he is coming back off an injury, but he was able to play the last few games for Chelsea. I was a little bit surprised Christopher Nkunku did not at least make the final roster, and Dembele hasn't necessarily been that great. And then you look after him there's Kalu Muani, and then there's the Barcola, but we haven't really seen Barcola yet. It has been a very disjointed, French side, and they did enough to possibly beat the Netherlands as well, but that game ended up scoreless as well. They have been good defensively, and a lot of that has been Conte, but people coming into this probably would have wanted to or would have expected a little bit more from France than what we've seen, and that just hasn't been the case so far. But again, just early days. France definitely have the pedigree, as we've seen for the last few tournaments. If they do get Mbappe back, as long as he doesn't necessarily suffer any kind of consequences, he's it's not like he wasn't dangerous versus Austria. That obviously does change them a little bit as well. And then Turkey and Georgia, that's the next game, and they decided to play basically the best group game of international competition in a long time, according to a lot of people that were able to watch it. The game was not shown on TV, but 3-1. The first goal by Mudair in the 25th minute, and then Miku Zakduze in the 32nd minute, and then Arda Gular with a wonder goal, just absolute strike in the 65th minute. The Real Madrid youngster. I think he was first at Fenerbahce, and then Real Madrid obviously picked him up, and unfortunately, it's just for Turkey, he wasn't really able to go versus Portugal. At least he picked up some kind of injury. He was able to get some minutes in the legs. Didn't look himself though, so that was definitely a fortunate loss for Turkey. And then Artur Koglu in the 97th minute, where a player for Galatasaray made it 3-1 after they basically final kick in the game. Georgia possibly had a chance to maybe even draw it 2-2. They drew a free kick. They had the goalie all the way up, and Turkey were able to defend that, and then basically Turkey were able to get a breakaway and able to score in with the empty net. But this was a high energy game. But both teams wanted to just attack, left and right. The XG for both was really high. Keepers had to make lots of saves, lots of shots from distance. Just a throwback. And apparently the atmosphere was fantastic as well, and just yeah, I mean, the American audience just missed a really good game. Apparently, according to people on Twitter that were able to watch it, at least in England or in Europe, or I guess people that had Fubo TV. I mean, Georgia just one of those cases where they were just really unlucky. The interesting thing here was as high tacking and as fun as they were apparently in this game versus Czech Republic or Czechia, they were anything but. They only had like two or three goals or two or three shots that entire game, but it doesn't matter. They were still able to make one of them count. So and then the final game before we get to round two was Portugal. One of the favorites coming in, and they struggled. They struggled versus Czech Republic or Czechia. I'm still confused on how this works. Apparently, Turkey changed their name to Turkiye, which I didn't really know. So I guess we'll call it by their official names. Czechia and Turkiye. But yeah, here Portugal go down to Czech. I can't even remember what it is. I'll just say Czech Republic. With Pavard in the 65th minute. It was scoreless after the first half, and Czech Republic, get the goal after basically being able to go down the wing a little bit. And I forget if it's necessarily a corner kick or they just have a little switch, and then there's a cross into the box, and then that's defended. And then at basically the ball finds a Pavard, and he has a fantastic hit from outside the box. Another shot from distance that's able to go in. That's been another thing too. There's been a lot of wonderful goals from distance that has made this tournament a lot of really special and a lot of fun. Uh, Portugal, though, it felt like they got that first half wrong as well. Martinez went with a very strange kind of lineup. Uh, he was playing Nuno Mendes almost like a third center back. He was playing Cancelo as their left back, but he was trying to squeeze him a little bit into midfield. You had Vitinha and next to Bruno. Bruno was kind of leaving him, so you had just little Vitinha by himself. Where I thought he actually played quite well. And then you had the problem I thought was just on the with Bruno Fernandes and Bernardo Silva. It was just kind of like for like. You only had really Ronaldo. You had Rafael Leao to make some runs as well, but Leao was kind of having a poor game, in my opinion as well. Cancelo wasn't doing any kind of overlap. He was just kind of trying to play in midfield. Just everything was very disgruntled, very disjointed, as you can say, and it didn't. It was very clashy. And basically, Roberto Martinez was able to change some things, and that is the one thing that Portugal do offer you is they have that ability. You can change both fullbacks if you want to bring on some pacey width. If you want to bring on a Semedo, you can do that. If you want to bring on, you can move Cancelo to the right side, which we actually saw in their other game. You have Diego Dallo, as an option as well. Dallo actually started in this game, and I thought he was poor a little bit as well. But what he did is he brought on Diego Jota, and he brought on Pedro Neto, and he brought on Conceição. And really, that did make the difference. They basically get back 1-1 with an own goal. It's just kind of a square ball in, and then after that, Pedro Neto was able to not only just be direct because Rafael Leao was doing that as well, but actually able to make the right decision after he made his man miss. So a little of that pace and directness was what was needed, and Neto did a very good job to find Conceição into the box. And there was maybe a deflection after the cross, and he's just able to finish it. And that's a youngster player that I didn't really spend any time talking about as well, and he was even man of the match for one of their friendly games coming into this. Portugal are loaded. I thought Ronaldo actually looked sharp as well. Just the balance on the team did feel a little bit off, but that is the kind of thing that you just when you are this talented, you can make mistakes, and with the five subs, able to rectify that a little bit, and maybe it'll be a good thing that maybe they got their bad game, as you could say, out of the way as the first game because they were better in the second game, and so we get to round two. And Germany continue to be strong. They beat Hungary 2-0 with Musiala and Gundogan. So they're beating the teams that you expect to beat. But I did feel like they looked a little bit more vulnerable than they did for Scotland. Neuer had to make a few big saves. Kimmich, I thought, didn't necessarily have his best game. There were a couple of times when he basically played Neuer in some pretty bad danger. But it doesn't really matter because again, the quality of Gundogan and Musiala was just there to shore things up. So it's fitting that both get both goals. Another problem that came on was Sane, came off the bench and again didn't look himself. So it does feel like maybe bench depth could be a problem for them. Um, and I was wondering just after this game, and definitely wondered after the game for Switzerland, was it a mistake not to bring Kaim Adeyemi to this team? So we'll see if that ends up showing up or not. Uh, Hungary have been a very very strange team. It's possible they're actually going to actually be able to advance because of what they did for Scotland at the very last minute. So Hungary have not necessarily been great coming into this, but they possibly have a chance to play more football. We'll have to see. Uh, and then Croatia and Albania, and this is the game that Croatia is going to really want back. So they draw 2-2. Albania they get the last goal, super late goal at the very end, which is very fitting because of the way that they've been a very good side to start games and kind of end games because we saw versus Italy where they were outplayed for basically all 90 minutes outside the first 30 seconds and outside the last basically minute in that game as well, and so fitting a little bit here. They get the first goal with Laci in the 11th minute. Gvardiol is drawn out of position. Brozovic can't fill in the gap to stop the cross, and it's a pretty good header or it's a pretty good cross in. Uh, and at halftime, there you go. 1-0. Croatia had all this ball, but they weren't able to go anywhere with it. And the thing that I was wondering was, basically showed up. I was talking Croatia a little bit, but I did have a caveat, and that was yeah, it's one thing for that midfield three with all the age and all the wisdom in their legs. They they do have a lot of miles in those legs as well, and they're not really great at offering runs forward ahead of them, and they need people to play ahead of the ball, and just the lineup that they went with they weren't getting that in this game. There are no ways to really break anything down. It's when Kovacic had the ball, it's not like Modric or it's not like Brozovic were going to make runs ahead, and it just felt Croatia were just really really out of ideas, and if not for the same changes, they possibly do even lose this game 1-0. But they did. The manager did make some changes. Did bring on some fresh legs. Basically, took off Brozovic, kept on. He basically moved Modric a little bit more to kind of deeper. Brought on Pasalic. Brought on Lukic. Brought on Budimir. And I think brought on Pekovic as well, and just he made a lot of changes, and that basically showed up. They get the own goal by Gushlar, and then so they make it 1-1, and then they actually got some help after that. I think it's Kramaric in the 74th minute as well, and so they get 2 goals really after those changes, and the 2 goals just came, right, back to back. I think Budimir had a really good play on the byline to basically, I don't necessarily know if he throws the Albanian defender to the ground or what, but maybe gets a little lucky with there, but he's able to stay on his feet, and then he's able to pick out the square ball, and it just kind of clashes off Gulash for the own goal, but he gets the last laugh because he gets the second he gets basically the equalizer at the very end, and it's another one of those cases where again one of the center backs isn't able to, or the wide player isn't necessarily able to track the run. it's not even really a disguised run, just someone is just kind of continuing to drag on. They were to play him, able to play, a run into, towards the byline as just cutback ball, and I think it's Sutalo. He has a foot that sticks out, and that just deflects right into the path, for Gulashi to have a fairly easy tap in. And Croatia are now in trouble because of what happened yesterday with Italy, and it is because of this. Had they just been able to hang on for that 90 seconds, Croatia would have been fine. But it doesn't feel like they would have been able to really do much this tournament. Just not enough offensively, and again, it is unfortunate because as good as that midfield has been, as good as really any three in international tournaments for the last 6 years or so. And finally, you don't want to necessarily say it met his match, but they really needed some offensive help, in front of them. They had no one making runs in front of them, and in the end, that it looks like that's possibly gonna be, what sends them home unless they get a lot of help, with a lot of other teams. And then with Scotland and Switzerland, Scotland have been probably as poor of a side as really any, in the tournament, and, they do get the 1-1 draw, a fantastic goal by Shaqiri, so they actually end up, going down. Shaqiri always seems to just turn up for Switzerland. He's a funny little player, just scores bangers out of nowhere, and he had another wonderful strike here. And then McTominay was able to make it 1-1 after a nice little counter where led by Andrew Robinson, able to have a nice little carry, cross into the box, and McTominay just first times it and gets a little deflection to get past the keeper. Uh, Scotland possibly could have even won this game. Robinson in the second half had a couple. He had a free kick that just needed anyone to just get ahead on it because this ball just flew across the 6 yard line where no one was able. It was a perfectly delivered ball, and all it needed was just a little header on it. And I think one of the Scotland players got something on it, but didn't get full contact. And then Robinson made another run later in the game that had a square ball that again, right across the 6 yard area, just missing a touch, and just there was no one there. Scotland played slightly better, but again, and the manager did trick some things. So brought on Billy Gilmore, and played Scott McTominay almost like a 10. They had John McGinn and Adams, basically playing together a little higher up to help them a little bit, press a little higher. Uh, but it was just it was still poor. And just you look, it got to a point where you just didn't see where the goals were going to come from, and that's a bit of a other than like McTominay. You kind of looked at their bench that you didn't know where they could possibly go. They had that Shanklin player, and he finally came on, but he came on like the 90th minute. That feels like that's too late to really impact the game at all. Scotland needed to win this game, and and then another thing that just compounded on them was Kieran Tierney had to be stretchered off, possibly for his hamstring. So just to continue their problem. So the draw kept them alive, but only just. And then as we saw versus what we saw versus Hungary, uh, where they were as poor as really equally probably as poor as they were versus Germany, just in other ways. Just they set up to not really win the game. Neither team had any kind of touches into the opponent's box, and at the very end, I think Scotland had a late corner kick, and they basically conceded at the very end, just on a counter. But Scotland were poor the entire tournament, and it is unfortunate because that was reports said that their fans were boisterous, seen in the German grounds, and it just seems they didn't really have anything to cheer for. It was they haven't always been in a lot of these big tournaments as well, so you would have liked them to do a little bit better, but they were able to at least celebrate a goal, Scott McTominay's goal. And then we get to Slovenia and Serbia, also a 1-1 draw with Kornic with the I think it's Slovenia with a heavy this Quantic guy has a brilliant job to just kind of score this all by himself. So he creates he at first he gets the turnover, and then he has a clever little turn and dribble, and then he carries the ball, and then he plays it out wide, and then, after the crosses come in, he does well to just continue his run to the box, and he has the finishing touch. So that was great. And then, Jovicic, at the very end, I think, Serbia get a late corner kick, and Jovic is able to just kind of head it in. So Slovenia were very, very close to getting a very big 3 points that would have set them clean as well. But it would have felt maybe a little undeserved. Serbia, Mitrovic probably could have had a hat trick. I mentioned how Lukaku's been unlucky. Mitrovic has been equally been unlucky as well. Sesko had a few chances. Benjamin Sesko had a few chances for Slovenia as well. Probably got close a couple of times. Uh, and I mean, there you go. But both of those teams are still alive in their group along with Denmark. So we'll see what happens. I guess later on today, and then we get to the big one, the betting favorite in England and Denmark. So the 1-1 draw. I was wondering, would this be maybe the match day of the group? Would this basically be the game of the match week 2? And then I forgot, Spain and Italy played on that same day, which was, that actually was even the better game. And there were a lot of draws in the second round. So I am wondering a little bit about that. Was everyone just kind of went gung ho in the first game, and then they're a little bit more second thought came into this, where it was more about getting yourself placed for the third stage. It's possible we saw a little bit of that because a lot of teams were nearly as aggressive going forward, uh, including this one. So yeah, I mean, England get the first goal with Harry Kane, just like we saw with Serbia, to get the early goal. And so here they do well. They keep the ball a little bit. They find Walker on a little bit of a switch, I think, from Mark Gahey, and then Walker plays it up to upfield to Saka, and then Saka squares it to Bellingham centrally, and then Jude turns on it and plays what looks to be a poor ball to upfield. That the Denmark fullback Christensen should easily be able to handle it, because he's goal side of Saka, and he feels like Saka is the only danger, and he just forgets that Kyle Walker is behind him. And basically that's what happened. Walker just continues his sprint, and basically surprises him, catching him from behind. And then Walker has a cross, and basically the cross kind of deflects, and the ball ends up finding Harry Kane into the box, and that's where you want your number 9 to be, into the box. And that'll be another kind of theme I highlight later on, is just Kane was not doing what he did for Serbia, where he was doing well to be upfield. He was trying to come for the ball a little too much in this game, and you don't want that. You don't want your number 9 to necessarily do that. But it was a good finish, and Reek foot finish as well. And so there you go. England started off well, as even before that. So you thought, again, just like with the Serbia game, you thought this would maybe even be comfortable, because Denmark were not doing well to keep the ball, and then it was almost like instantly after they conceded, just everything just there was like a flip or a switch that flipped on, and everything was entirely different. Basically, for the next 15 minutes, until basically Denmark get their goal, England are defending for their lives. Denmark are doing an amazing job to keep the ball moving quickly. It feels like they're winning every single second ball. They're getting England to go long, and then winning it back. England not able to keep the ball at all. Christian Eriksen's getting more involved. It looks like they were doing well to get their fullbacks a little higher up. Jorge Mailer playing on the right, basically right back. Phil Foden had no idea what to do with him. Uh, and basically, Trippier didn't as well. They were using Jonas Wind, Mela, and either Højbjerg, Christian Eriksen when he was floating, or they basically, Denmark were overloading that left hand side, and just or I guess their right hand side, yeah, England's left hand side, and just England had no idea at all how to deal with this. And eventually, that pressure ends up paying off, because Denmark started to get a couple chances, and England needed to have some pretty big blocks, and then it's a mistake. It's an individual mistake, but the mistake came from all that pressure, because England were just did not have any time on the ball. And I think that's basically what happened with Harry Kane. Harry Kane gets the ball after a throw in, and he's just trying to switch the play to just, escape from pressure, and it's not really something you want. It's not a mistake you think Harry Kane would make, to be honest, someone that is really good with the ball at his feet, but it's just yeah, it's the setting. He probably doesn't make this mistake when he's playing for Bayern Munich. It's a different kind of setting, and he does. He just plays a weak ball into the middle that just finds Christensen. Christensen has the touch to find Morten Hoyland, and yeah, Trent Alexander-Arnold is too late to recognize to run to the ball. Declan Rice can't get there as well. So there's space for him to not only collect it. He sees that there's a gap to go to take a shot at Pickford. I mean, he's still 25 yards out. And you figure Pickford could probably probably get to this. But John Stones is actually standing a little bit in his vision, and it's a perfectly hit ball. To be honest, it's another screamer from distance. And, even if Pickford's able to see it, I don't necessarily know if he's gonna be able to get there because it was hit that hard, and it banks off. It had the perfect, like, just side spin or just no spin, and it just creeped in the post, uh, and it's just, the way that the game started, you wouldn't have seen Denmark being able to play like this, but after Denmark scored that goal, you would even the announcers were like, "It felt coming." Pickford again, just England could not escape the pressure, and kept getting played the ball, and he was just going long, and Denmark was just winning again, and it just felt like, unlike England, Denmark's players were just very brave on the ball. They're passing it, to feet, finding feet like it was nothing. Their ball retention near the box was incredible, and so there you go. It felt like even Denmark had even more chances, and then at the very in the second half, after Southgate made some changes, some good. He basically took out the entire attacking line. But by the time he did that, he also took out all his basically creative players that could see some of those runs. There was one basically chance when Jude Bellingham played in Ollie Watkins on a run, but that was really it. There was not a lot of creation in the second half, and basically the game kind of petered out for both sides. Denmark, had 16 shots to I think England's 12. England at least had more shots than the five they had versus Serbia. But if anything, it did feel like Denmark probably were the team that should have won the game, not England, and that's two really poor performances in a row. So before I get on to England, I do want to have some comments on Denmark. I am going to focus a little bit more on England like I normally do, but yeah, with Denmark, like I said, a little bit more unfortunate to not get more out of the game because after again the first 15 minutes or so, they took over the game, and I do think England are worthy of their criticism, but Denmark did force the issue. They played some nice stuff, so it is worth it to talk that up. It just felt like they also one of the reasons why things kind of changed is they were much better at closing down quicker. They were forcing England to again go long. They were forcing Declan Rice to do the issue. They were doing well to prevent Harry Kane from being able to get the ball. That's why he kept dropping deep for it. The only outlet really was Saka, and for the most, other than like Christensen falling asleep when Walker was able to catch him for the goal. I thought Christensen did a decent job defending Saka 1v1. Saka really wasn't able to necessarily go behind him. Another thing too was Denmark's shape actually did work a little bit in their favor. I mentioned how it was surprising to see the back three versus Slovenia. Slovenia, when you got majority of the ball, and when you're playing a team that really isn't going to necessarily press those third center backs, it's almost I want to say pointless, but it is. It doesn't necessarily have the same kind of effect. Well, here versus England, it was brilliant, especially when England were trying to get the ball off him because England only had like Harry Kane to kind of run at, and it was got a half-hearted press. And England's, Denmark had the three center backs, and even then they also had the keeper. And England were never able to get the numbers right to run at them. So it really was a good job by. It really was a good game plan by Denmark. And another thing too was after again one of the reasons why Denmark came to life after the 15 minutes or so is it felt like Eriksen got more and more involved. Eriksen seemed to grow into the game. Højbjerg of Spurs seemed to grow into the game a little bit more, as did Morten Højlund. Yeah, I felt like both of them won their duels and did much better to find their teammates. And so maybe the only criticism with not getting Rasmus Højlund of Man United the ball enough, and he was kind of taken off a little bit in the second half. And that's possibly the one kind of criticism I think you can maybe go at the coach. I thought Højlund was taken off, or Rasmus was taken off way too early. Brought on Christian Poulsen. I didn't think he offered anything. Uh, but they were quite, Jonas Wynn as well was doing a very good job to link up and to to be a pressing pressing body, and just felt from basically after they conceded for like 45 minutes, the next 45 minutes or so, they controlled the game, and they did well to keep the ball moving, and it felt easy at times. It felt like they had an open man every time. Just England was so disjointed. It really was impressive. And another thing too was just they didn't seem like there was a threat in behind them at all. So they were able to play their three center backs really high up. And so it just felt like England were always outnumbered in a very weird way. And again, it just felt like Foden and Trippier did not know how to handle Denmark's right side, England's left side. Because again, Mela was just he just kept receiving the ball, being an outlet, and then Mela was really good at also when the space was there, he was carrying it and dribbling it, and that was creating issues as well. Really, it wasn't until Ollie Watkins came on that England finally were able to push punish some of this high line back. But that was kind of the thing. Just it was honestly Denmark were comfortable, maybe even too comfortable. And again, just it is unfortunate they weren't able to actually make that into the 3 points. Uh, the back three, Vestergaard was almost moved centrally, and so they moved Christensen a little bit more to the left, so he was a little bit better of a ball player when he got the ball a little bit on the left. I thought Vestergaard actually did a pretty good job in this game of just being really aggressive, centrally. And again, he didn't really have to deal with Harry Kane necessarily, in 1v1s. And then Anderson on the right is really comfortable with the ball as well. And there are a couple of times when he was just dribbling all the way upfield, he was making some touches into the box. Denmark were very fluid. It was impressive. It was impressive how all three of them were on the ball, and it was also impressive with how they were breaking lines. They were again, just England were just kind of standing around and being stagnant, and it was not a problem for Denmark to go through it. The midfield, I was surprised. Again, we didn't see Jensen. I was surprised we didn't see Norgard again. That could be just EPL bias, shining through. But Højbjerg was quite good, as was Morten Højlund. I thought Eriksson was more involved as well, but Højlund, it just felt like he was manhandling Jude Bellingham all second half. Anytime Jude was getting the ball, it felt like Højlund was right on his shoulder, getting a foot in, either fouling him or just making it really really uncomfortable. He was everywhere. He doesn't just have the strike. He was fantastic on the ball. He was getting the ball and turning. He was doing what Declan Rice wasn't able to do. He was impressive, and he's been linked. He was linked to a couple of big clubs before this tournament, and probably after this goal and after this game and after that kind of strike, he'll probably be linked to a few even more clubs. You imagine. He was very good. I think Højbjerg is a free agent now as well. He might not be on Spurs, so if he wants to stay in the EPL and stay in London. I honestly think he'd fit at Brentford as a club, because it's very funny. He has a different job with Denmark than he normally has with Spurs. Sometimes it seems like he's been played almost like an energy kind of defender, and he's almost like a 10 or almost like an 8, just kind of a free role. And he's more of an attacking third player when he plays for Denmark. And I don't know if he had like 11 shots himself, but he was very very influential in the final third with the kind of final decisions that he was making. Uh, he was quite good, and he was good at winning duels as well. And just again, they were the better team. They really were. And then England were better than what they produced for Serbia, but only a little bit. So they get the goal, they get the opener with Kane. And then basically they almost set up shop. They were like forced. They weren't able to keep the ball. That was a time when you could have maybe, if England were good at keeping the ball, that would have forced Denmark to chase it. You could have chased their legs a little bit, and instead, Christian Eriksen's not really going to be able to imagine to attack the ball that much, and just they weren't able to do it. It was amazing. Well, once Denmark was started to switch their game plan, basically started running at the ball, England could not keep it. and that, if nothing else, is the biggest worry sign, because that's been twice that has happened, and you don't really know how Southgate can necessarily change that because when you look at what he's rumored to have changed for the next game, it doesn't seem like he's taken that into account, basically. So uh, another thing too is it felt like they basically stopped pressing. They stopped taking some risk, and it felt like it's almost worse when you don't take a risk on the ball. Because when you go sideways or when you go backwards, all you're doing, especially when a team that is running at you, all you're doing is inviting pressure now on the keeper to bail you out. And too often than not, Pickford were just going long. That basically was what England was doing. They couldn't keep the ball, so they would go long. And Denmark were winning those. Denmark had three center backs basically back there to win those duels. England were just getting, Foden's not going to do anything versus center back. So they weren't able to keep the ball. I thought they're basically I thought they were disorganized as well. When Kane or when Saka, when someone, even when Rice, when someone would go to press by themselves, they were basically doing it by themselves, and it wasn't like a pressing trigger. It wasn't like the whole unit. It wasn't like the team was going as a unit. I thought that was an issue. Uh, and it's just another thing too is when you're playing people that aren't used to they playing their positions, that can be a downfall of it. Trent Alexander-Arnold isn't a midfielder. Foden doesn't always play on the left. Trippier isn't a left back, and it just felt out of possession. They were exposed again, unfortunately. Frankly, I did feel like if Trent Alexander-Arnold was doing better to be closer to Rice because I thought for Serbia, him and Jude were almost kind of ahead of Rice, and Rice was just by himself. Uh, Here, I thought it was almost was a double pivot. But the problem was also the marking. I thought they were almost sitting way too back. The gap between where Alexander Arnold and Rice were compared to where the front line was just too massive. It almost felt like they gave Jude Bellingham way too much ground to cover by himself, and he was getting outnumbered as well. And so they were there. I thought that was a big issue. And the issue of just not being able to keep the ball. The only runs I thought that was happening upfield was maybe Jude Bellingham, making some disguise runs, and he was doing a good job. And the only one that was even looking for it was Trent Alexander-Arnold. In fact, it got to a point where the only time Bellingham was making a run was when Arnold had the ball, and there were a couple times when actually Bellingham and Trent actually looked at each other and both like waved, like as like Arnold was saying, "I should have played that pass." When Rice had the ball, Bellingham, no one was moving when Rice had the ball. I was noticing that too. The only other one that was making runs was Trippier. Trippier was doing a good job to be an outlet, and Trent had a couple of switches over to him. But that was about it. And when Trippier got the ball, he wasn't able to, swing something in with his left foot. So it got to a point where it was kind of pointless. And I think Denmark kind of recognized that too. They weren't even marking Trippier when he was going out on the wing. So there were a lot of bad things here. I mean, you can be poor in possession and still win. And you can still also be an attacking threat, but you have to either be a great pressing side to win the ball back, or you have to be a legit counter threat, either over the top or on the wings. And England and this tournament so far have lacked both. And so, and a good example can be for the Denmark goal, because after the let's look at the tactics here. Uh, Southgate rolled with the same exact 11 that he went with Serbia, and you can't see two sides to the argument. You don't want to necessarily throw everything up after just one game, because that can possibly set the wrong uh, that can possibly set the wrong kind of mood in the locker room. That can maybe set the idea that you don't really know what you're doing. That can set the idea that you've lost faith in your players. But here it's not necessarily that the players playing poor. I think it's just a case of the profiles that he's picked don't match up. And I think the big problem here is it doesn't feel like Southgate recognizes that. So, and it feels like his subs are baffling. He seems to just do midfielder for midfielder, attacker for attacker. He doesn't seem to recognize why maybe one midfielder would work, and another midfielder wouldn't. And another thing too that's interesting is, in the past, England got through a lot of terms playing a different formation. They were almost playing a 3-4-3. So they've changed the shape. Now, no Maguire this tournament maybe changes things, but I don't really know how much I buy that. And it feels like Southgate has moved to a 4-2-3-1 to give someone a number 10 role. It feels like maybe he's heard criticism in the past that England haven't been as adventurous with the ball. So maybe he wants a little bit more of someone to have a free role. But the funny thing is he's given that 10 role to Jude Bellingham, not Phil Foden. And, and it's just and I think another thing, too is that 4-2-3-1 turns into a 4-4-2 out of possession. But with a team playing a back three, you're gonna always be outnumbered when you're pressing with only 2. When you're pressing forward with only 2. You have to almost have you almost have to change it to a 4-2-4, and England haven't been doing that. And basically, it's not as I don't think it's a coincidence that they've struggled their first 2 games by playing teams with a back 3. Maybe when they play against, someone else, later on into the stage, maybe it'll be beneficial to go against someone just playing, in a standard back 4. I don't know how much I necessarily buy that, argument, but that could be something there. Uh, but and that's the reason why that 3-4-3 shape is different because you have three you can press with. There have been times when he has played a 4-3-3, and again it's similar. You have three in the front to press with. So, uh, and another thing too is one thing you can say is he has given with the with the 4-2-3-1 kind of shape is he's given someone a 10 role, but he's also given someone to play next with to Declan Rice because with the 4-3-3 you can't really necessarily do that. So I just think they can maybe go back to a different formation and maybe play Rice as an 8. So you would have to change who you play as your 6. And I'm gonna get to who I think that should be. It's not gonna probably be who people, expect, or maybe I'm repeating myself because, I have, said his name a few times, and it is Adam Wharton. Now the problem is do you wanna can you just throw in a 20-year-old who doesn't really have any international experience, immediately, into the lion's den, as they say, an untested 20-year-old, here? I don't really know what else they can necessarily now you can do Wharton with Declan Rice, I guess you can maybe do that. I don't like the idea of him going to Conor Gallagher, which I'll get to, because one of the things that I think was funny about this is after Trent Alexander-Arnold had a great pass over the top that found, Saka making a run, and it was basically England's best chance, in the second half before Watkins came on. Uh, finally someone played a run in, someone made the run and someone played it in, and Saka had a chance to almost, test, Schmeichel, coming out and basically, hit the side netting, and then Southgate hooked Alexander-Arnold after that, and I feel like I mentioned it even in a little bit in my preview. I hate how predictable it is that Alexander-Arnold has become the face of the disappointment. He's been the one that everyone has focused on in English media as to why this hasn't worked, and you're playing him out of position, for one thing. Southgate said something after the conference that he's upset that he doesn't have Calvin Phillips to play with because Calvin Phillips was kind of it wasn't they weren't using Declan Rice 3 years ago when England were able to make the finals. They were reliant on Calvin Phillips and his ability to play direct balls, and they've been trying to ask Trent to do that. But here's the problem: you don't to do that. He's asking Trent to play almost like Tony Cruz, and he can't do that. But the issue is you don't have anyone making forward runs ahead of him. Phil Foden's looking for the ball. Harry Kane isn't doing a good enough job, and even in the times when he's in position, he's not going to make a run that threatens anyone. Harry Kane's looking more and more like Olivier Giroud now, which is not, or Thomas Muller, which is not a good thing. Not a good thing for him. His physical levels has not been necessarily great. Now there was talks that he didn't finish the last few games for Bayern Munich as well, so maybe he's dealing with an injury. I don't necessarily know, but he hasn't looked his fit self. There's only Saka, and that's the reason why not playing someone like an Anthony Gordon has been a massive mistake. There's a reason why not bringing Rashford with you or even a Sterling with you to this team has been a major, major mistake. I've seen people suggest that they need someone like a Cole Palmer to play. Cole Palmer is another ball to feet kind of creative player that you have a boatload of, and he's going to run to the ball too. He doesn't necessarily change much of that either. So I just hate again. I really do hate how predictable this has been. And so he brings off Alexander Arnold for Conor Gallagher, and Gallagher's there to make some runs, and Gallagher can recognize he can do a better job maybe of recognizing, when someone gets the ball to run at them. So maybe if Conor Gallagher is playing, maybe the Hoyland shot doesn't happen because he's better at closing down. He recognizes, as a midfielder to run to there because Alexander Arnold was trying to mark someone else instead of going to the danger. You can maybe argue that, but Gallagher is not going to be one to find Jude Bellingham the ball, to find Saka, to find Foden in the spaces that he wants the ball. Uh, as well, and neither is Rice. And so you have the problem of that's been the same thing, but by doing that. And so Conor Gallagher maybe is better with you out of possession. Maybe that's the thing that Southgate thinks is their issue is they're not good enough out of possession. And it's possible he's right, but I just think you could easily play Trent Alexander-Arnold over Kyle Walker at right back, or you could find a way to play Declan Rice a little bit different. You play him further upfield. Do because that's the other thing that I've harped on, and I'm going to do it again. He's not comfortable receiving the ball in build-up. There were a couple of times when he got the ball, on a goal kick, and he was immediately under pressure, and basically he passed it out of bounds and gave away a corner kick. Uh, he can't. He's not comfortable dictating the game with a pass. He can't play through lines. It's fine to be safe. It's fine to have someone to win you duels to be there for recovery. He's fantastic at stopping transitions. He's amazing at that. Uh, but I think there's a reason why Arteta, after January, started playing Jorginho almost every single game, and when Partey became fit, Partey immediately returned to the side, and Declan Rice was always used almost more advanced, more advanced as like a midfield eight. In any kind of the big games that Arsenal played in, it almost seemed like that was the idea. Declan Rice was used to press higher upfield, essentially to not be someone to dictate the play, starting possessions. And I think that has been a major major mistake by Southgate not recognizing what Declan Rice is, and I think that's more on Southgate than anyone else, and I don't think the English media are going to recognize that, but that is a massive problem, and it was easy to predict before this tournament because you saw it somewhat a little bit in the in some of the Nations League games a couple of years ago. You saw it in some of their friendlies. But anyone that's watched Arsenal for the last year would have been able to call that out too. So it's been a problem. So why? And another thing too is why did Southgate bring both Kobe Mano and Adam Wharton if you're not gonna play him? Can you play someone next to Declan Rice that's not Trent Alexander-Arnold? It could possibly be Kobe Mano or Wharton. I don't think Kobe Mano is that kind of player either. I think Kobe Mano can get the ball in the turn, and escape pressure. I think he's very good at that. I think he's got great ball pretension. I haven't seen Kobe Mano dictate a game with a pass that I have seen Adam Wharton do for Crystal Palace. Adam Wharton was amazing for Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, with trying to press him, trying to like hell to get him to turn the ball over, and he was very, very good against that pressure. That's the only time that I've really seen him really, really under intense pressure. Adam Wharton dictated the game versus Newcastle, versus Eddie Howe's high intensity Newcastle as well. And it's just is that enough? Do you feel like you can maybe babysit him a little bit? You have Rice and Wharton together. I feel like you can maybe do that, but at anytime Rice is in the side, you just know he's not going to be a threat to have the ball. So you never have to mark him. And I think high intelligent sides recognize that. And I think just in general, you have to find a way to get Declan Rice further upfield where he can get the ball. He doesn't necessarily have to turn on it. He can get the ball in space and he can carry it because he's a very good dribbler. He can make decisions in the final third. He has a pass in him that way. It's just when things are just kind of settled, you can't do anything. You can't do anything there. So I don't think the issue is playing more Cole Palmers, which I've seen suggested. I think it's more what I said there. So uh, and I think another problem too is if it's not going to be Alexander Arnold, it's not going to be Wharton. It can't be Conor Gallagher. And I just watching Conor Gallagher. I I think it's a mistake that, someone like a Harvey Elliott, now that's gonna sound like a homer, someone like a Harvey Elliott wasn't selected because I think Harvey Elliott can do that job too. I think Harvey Elliott can make those passes and to do better to advance the play. I just think Gallagher is just he's a throwback to what England had been in the past, and that's the reason why they have been able to do well in tournaments. It's one thing to have energy and legs, but I just think he's really poor on the ball as well, and he also makes some rash decisions when he goes in for a tackle. He came on the field within 5 minutes, he picked up a yellow. So, uh, another thing that's kind of funny is too is I'm gonna try to say this seriously, but it is a little tongue in cheek. But the way he was talking about him missing Calvin Phillips, uh, a player that an English player that does have that long switch in his game, that's not afraid of being direct, not afraid of just going long, is Jordan Henderson. Someone that did feature for them 3 years ago. He's also a player that's very vocal, and I feel like a couple of the times when England have decided to push a little bit further back, is almost like a it almost seems like their kind of comfort zone when they don't have the ball. They try to push a little bit deeper as opposed to like staying higher up. Jordan Henderson, I think, would have been more vocal to make them play a higher line. They have center backs where they can. Mark Gahey was amazing, doing a recovery job. John Stones it doesn't have an issue when it comes to running backwards. England can play a higher defensive line than we've seen, and that has been another problem, in my opinion, that I've seen as well. So it does get to Southgate, and I feel like he looks lost. I didn't love his final team selection to even before the tournament. I talked about that. But even the subs and tactical changes in second half of games, that has been a issue of his since he's been an England manager. There was a game versus Croatia that I thought England probably should have won. England probably should have made the final in 2018. So he thought he was poor there in the Euros final. England probably should have won. England probably should have beaten Italy. They had the early goal lead, and then Southgate didn't make another sub after that when England had to actually press the issue. When England had someone like a Verratti and Jorginho, and you had Chiellini and Bonucci, as old as they were, on the ball, you just they in Italy in that second half started pushing more and more players higher upfield. Why didn't Southgate just immediately bring on a Rashford or I don't necessarily know it would have been a Grealish, just someone to have a counter threat over the top? Why didn't Southgate if Ollie Watkins was playing back then, why not make any kind of change to just have just a threat of the counter over the top to stop Italy from doing that? That probably would have won you the game and won you the Euro finals. And he didn't make a sub until like basically the 85th minute, and I think it was for Jordan Henderson to come on, which isn't going. And then at the final end, all the subs he made were for PK decisions, and then lo and behold, the guys that came on to make those PKs ended up actually missing. So. Uh, I just think too often everyone's been going at players and have been avoiding the actual manager, and the manager has done a decent job to stop club clicks. Apparently, the locker rooms, apparently the vibes have been very good. So you can praise him a little bit for that. I think you can praise him a little bit for inviting a lot of Palace players. You didn't necessarily have to play for a top six side to get an England invite this time. He left off, Jack Grealish. He left off a Man City player. He left off Calvin Phillips. So I think you can commend him a little bit for that. But I just feel like it's been too easy for everyone to kind of look at for other reasons that haven't been Southgate. I feel like you really do need to look at him now. It's just he's come into this tournament where in the past you could have seen what he was trying to do. You could have seen he had a plan. He had an organized way of playing. This time it's been a jumbled mess where it almost feels like more like he's listened to so much criticism recently, where he's just decided to play everyone's favorites, anyone that's been talked about. Why aren't you playing him? Well, he's decided to just fit him all in the side, and just feel like it would work because everyone's so talented. And he's by doing that, he's playing people in different positions than they're used to, and players are getting blamed for it, not him. So I don't like it. I didn't like taking Trent Alexander-Arnold off for Conor Gallagher. If you want to take Alexander-Arnold off for a midfielder, I understand, but don't do it for someone that can't that basically can't do any kind of pass in him. Uh, he brings off. Oh, my favorite was finally bringing off Foden, finally taking off Kane, taking off Saka, bringing on a Jared Bowen, someone that has a run in him. Bringing on Eze can kind of has a little of Foden in him. He's a little more ball to feet than I would like. I probably would have preferred Gordon, but he brought on Ollie Watkins as well. So you had Bowen and Watkins to make those runs in. And what happened? Finally, Jude Bellingham started to play those runs in behind, and they were able to actually create some danger with that. But it was only really Jude Bellingham at that point when those guys came on. No one else was able to pick out those runs. No one when Eze got on the ball, no one was able to find him the ball because you took out all of your creative players. You took off Foden, you took off Alexander Arnold. To the players that have that through ball in their locker, the players that have that kind of vision in their game, you took them off. So it was just the whole square peg round hole kind of theory, fits in here too. And I just I mentioned before, I like as a player. He's been so much fun to watch with Palace. At that point in the game, Anthony Gordon needed to come on. I don't understand how Anthony Gordon has not gotten any kind of minutes so far this year or this tournament. So, and that continues to another part. Phil Foden continues to drift and leave that left wing spot, and you can see good examples of why this is okay because struck the post. He had a brilliant run in the first half, going past three players, being really exciting. He did the hard work, and then Harry Kane. He had Harry Kane to feed in the box, and unfortunately, he took on the shot. So that was poor effort there. But outside of the good, it leaves you exposed. If you leave that space and you lose the ball, which England were doing, but he's also clueless on who to mark. He was just running, Denmark had triangles going around him, and it got to a point where Foden was just kind of just standing around doing nothing. But he was outnumbered, and he's running towards the ball. He's not doing enough to be an outlet, and again, that's why I harp on Gordon. And I think another thing that's interesting is the way that Christian Eriksen was able to play for Denmark. He's the one that's been given the free role. The way that Eriksen was getting near the box and was having clever slip balls into pockets, that he was maneuvering in tight spaces. I feel like Foden can do that too, and they've decided to give that role to Jude Bellingham instead of Phil Foden. I don't. I If anything, Jude Bellingham next to Declan Rice. The job that he used to have before he went to Real Madrid. Because I feel like Bellingham actually can get the ball in the turret and actually has a pass next to him, and play Phil Foden as your 10. If in nothing else, just do that. That you don't even have to change personnel to make that work. Uh, I, again, I've been flabbergasted. And then you get to Harry Kane. Harry Kane scores for you, and then he's unfortunately responsible a little bit for the equalizer. You can't really go at him for a little bit for that, but you kind of have to. But he's coming. He was not doing what he did with Serbia. He was coming for the ball again. And I think the big, slightly worrying thing for me now is, I don't know if you can play Jude Bellingham and Harry Kane together if you're going to play Jude as your 10, or if you play Foden as your 10. I don't know if that works either because uh, you were asking Bellingham to make those runs, but no one other than Trent Alexander-Arnold was looking to do that. But another thing too is just the way that Kane looked just so legless, out of possession. He was just walking. They if England want to be this up tempo team that they've been in the past, it's almost like you can't do it with Kane. So when it comes to getting the ball to turn over, it's not like Kane's gonna be able to make a sprint to go to the keeper to make the keeper go long. You almost need to play Ollie Watkins, and Ollie Watkins isn't necessarily as good of a finisher in the box. So that becomes a bit of a talking point now. Uh, and Harry Kane is still only like 31. I don't even know if he's 30 yet. So it's you can play Harry Kane. I'm not saying you can't do it, but you have to surround him with pace, and England have decided not to do that. So uh, there've been people talking about Mark Gahey being a positive. England haven't necessarily been terrible as far as being as far as conceding. You conceded the late the long goal, but and Mark Gahey did have one moment where he was responsible for a mistake, but was able to recover. It feels like, but he had a number of really big blocks that actually stopped Denmark in the first half. So uh, I don't really necessarily know what you can do. So there's been a little positive there. It has been interesting though. John Stones has been now he didn't get a lot of games this season for Man City. He hasn't been the player that we see for Man City. Now, is that just kind of a Guardiola, just kind of a unique system thing? It could be, But John Stones gets the ball, and he sometimes goes into midfield for Man City. Could you have Declan Rice, take in, fill in the spot that Stones leaves, and have John Stones, move a little bit forward? Again, it requires doing some experimenting that just Southgate decided not to do when he had warm ups to think about that. So England, I think, are what they are. Another thing too is the left back is the thing. If Luke Shaw it wasn't even fit for the bench, so is he even going to be available? I've harped on Levitt Colwell, even someone like Tyrick Mitchell of Palace, just to play a left-footed left back there would have been better than fitting Trippier there. You almost shouldn't have brought Trippier, to be honest, unless you wanted to play. I think Trippier. I think Alexander Arnold should be played over over Kyle Walker. So Trippier would be my third preferred right back. To be honest, they brought Trippier to I guess do a job on left back, but it hasn't worked. Uh, and just Tyreek Mitchell would have at least offered you some an actual person that plays the position because I think that's an issue as well. Even someone like a Colwell at least has a left foot. You can't even play Joe Gomez there because Joe Gomez doesn't solve your problem there either. One thing you could do is you play Gomez and you basically shift to a back three, and you have your whoever's playing at right back basically becomes your right winger. So and again, that would probably suit someone like an Alexander Arnold, where you could be a little bit more in the attacking third. I don't think that necessarily suits Kyle Walker, but again, that requires you to think about this a little bit differently. And for some reason, Southgate doesn't seem to really be doing that. So uh, it's just England are what they are, and they've managed to do well in a bunch of tournaments lately by getting favorable draws and not conceding. And they've also been one of the best pressing sides in the international game, and it just feels like that's not been what they've been so far this tournament. And you don't always have to press. You can sit you can play back and you can sit and you can play for the counter. But if you do that versus like the quote unquote bigger sides, it'll bite you. So it just feels eventually this is what it's setting up to come. Another thing that Gary Neville said that I think has struck with me a little bit is he brought up how England never produced players like a Toni Kroos or Modric or Pirlo or Jorginho, just someone to like kind of dictate the game with their feet to keep the ball moving. And it's very interesting a little bit how a lot of countries have similar problems like this. We look at Spain. Spain has struggled with the number nines. It's basically Fernando Torres. Uh, or at least now Ever Morata is at least making a little bit of an argument there. But loads of teams struggle for pacing wingers and creative ridemen. And it's funny dynamic that it's not just England, at least in this perspective. But I think in regarding to Neville's point, when you look at someone like a Declan Rice, or just well, I think he was referring to Declan Rice. You look at the top EPL clubs, which is usually where the FA or who the England manager looks to make his team selections. Who are playing in those positions at those top clubs? Usually, it's not an English player. So I think there's some of that too. People on in the past, people on Crystal Palace wouldn't have gotten a look in. So you can credit Southgate for at least going there, but he's brought in Adam Wharton and he hasn't played him at all. So I don't know how much credit you want to give him. Even someone like a Harry Winks hasn't never really got looks into the England team. I don't even know if Harry Winks is 28 years old now. Uh, because even when he was on Spurs, it just feels like England have not really prioritized that position in the past. And it's just a number six isn't necessarily just a holding player. You can have someone that holds or a defensive minded midfielder that like sweeps in front of the back line. It can be someone that can dictate the game. And or at least the best ones, at least. And I do think Neville in that respect is right. England have not prioritized that position or lacked that position. And so, but another thing too is even if you put Tony Cruz on this England side or Jorginho, um, what are they going to do? Oh, yeah, there's only Saka making a forward run. So you need to have runs ahead of them. So it's the problem is twofold, as they can say. So I was just wondering, could you do possibly a Walker or an Alexander Arnold? Stones, Gahey, Trippier isn't ideal. Maybe a Gomez. I don't. You can't do anything about the left back spot. That's the thing. But could you do a 4-3-3 and actually have Adam Wharton, and then you have either a Foden almost on the as a midfield eight, or you could if you did this, you could possibly play Conor Gallagher. I put down Alexander Arnold, but people are probably going to like that. Can you play Declan Rice higher up, almost as like a midfield 8? And then you have either a Kane or a Jude. And then you have Saka or Ollie Watkins, and then a Gordon, and you basically have 2 that run ahead. You almost have if Kane or Jude, you almost play him as a false 9, essentially. And what you have is you have Saka and Ollie that will always be outlets for up ahead, and what you basically have is you have a diamond, in the middle of the field, a diamond midfield 4. Uh, it feels like that would be better than what we've seen here. You could also play Adam Wharton and Rice together, and you could still do the 10 job. But it just feels there needs to be something that's done that hasn't necessarily been worked, and it can't just be picking Trent Alexander-Arnold and taking him out of the side and thinking that's gonna fix everything. Maybe it fixes you a little bit out of possession, but when it comes to and maybe that is the idea. Maybe the idea is just kinda, maybe Conor Gallagher will actually get you some turnovers, and then you can break, and that's where you can win the ball a little higher up, and that's how you can get your offense going a little bit. I'm skeptical, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see what they do versus Slovenia, and then we get to Spain and Italy in the game that I always kind of go a little bit overboard talking about England, Spain and Italy. See how we're doing for time. It's not terrible, but it's not great. It looks like it will be a long episode. With Spain and Italy, this game it ends 1-0. It could have been much more. Given how Italy just really did dominate the ball, and albeit it was Albania. This was absolutely impressive. Donnarumma probably man of the match with the saves he did. So it like I said, it honestly it very easily could have been more. There's a moment in like the first 90 seconds where you probably see where this is going to be trouble for Italy. Spain go long on a goal kick. It's not something you would think of someone like a Spain to do. So that it shows you it's a different Spanish side. They have faith with Alvaro Morata, contesting and winning that first ball, or they have Rodri and Fabian Ruiz to maybe win those second balls when you go long, and they're able to win it. I think it's Rodri, gets on a second ball, and they able to go wide, and they basically, Alex Nico Williams just take on, De La Winza 1v1, beats him with ease, and then it's an easy pass into the box. It's a great delivery in, and, Pedri is able to connect on it, and, this easily could have been an opening goal in the first 90 minutes with a great save by Donnarumma, and what happens is, Alvaro Morata is in the box, and he makes a run near post and basically draws, like, 3 people to run to him, and that creates space for Pedri. Spain have been as advertised so far, and basically they win. They get the goal by Calafiore. It's also it's created by Nico Williams, who really was the star man of the show. I mean, Lamine Yamal was very good as well, but talked about Yamal last week. So Nico Williams gets his flowers this week because he really was impressive. Where, basically just really clever feet, just he was taking Di Lorenzo on, left and right and, Di Lorenzo did not enjoy having to face him 1 for 1. He wasn't getting help from Chiellini and wasn't getting help from Bastoni, uh, and basically, Nico Williams is able to beat him, run foots him, gets close to the byline, has a cut back cross kind of towards the 6-yard area, and basically it's either Donnarumma or someone, gets the ball and it just kinda deflects a little bit, and then it basically bounces off Calafiore's knee before he can react. Uh, but that's just, and it could have been much more. I think they ended the game with something like 20, 25-ish shots with, like, 10 on target. They were very impressive. They have been as good as advertised. Another thing too is I was wondering last week, would I was worried a little bit about how they're maybe the pressing or marking people out of possession was versus Croatia, because Croatia were actually the first team that really were able to dominate the ball versus them in a long time. They shut that up here. They were amazing. They were amazing at swarming the ball versus Italy. They were very, very good. I mean, the 2 wide players, Yamal and Nico Williams, have been the difference, as has Alvaro Morata, because it's not enough to have great attacking wide talent. One thing you don't think of Nico and Yamal being able to actually, get past a man and actually score a goal themselves. They're looking to create for someone in the box, and that's where Morata, comes in. That's something that Spain haven't always had. And Morata, again, I mentioned that, coming into the tournament, not everyone's cup of tea, but he's great at making runs. He's great at being there. And if you give him the service, he's going to make use of it. And another thing too is he's going to draw attention. And what he does is he occupies the center back attention with the kind of runs he's making. And he's making gaps for others, and people like Pedri, people like Fabian Ruiz, or not. We're filling in those gaps, and we're making good use of that as well. And so. Uh, It really could have been. It really could have been more. It was 20 shots. 20 shots in 9 versus 4. Italy only had 4. Patriots created 6 chances in 2 games, and it's just kind of unfortunate he hasn't able to score. He was my pick for maybe player of the tournament. That's probably not necessarily going to show it. It's possible Fabian Ruiz has overtaken that title with a couple of really impressive performances by him, maybe even outstaging Rodri. Yeah, and again, it could have been, Pedri missed 2 chances, Nico Williams hit the crossbar, Yamal was inches from scoring a screamer as well, on top of the, Donnarumma saves. This was very impressive. I mean, the back line maybe was the only concern coming into this. Nacho has a knock now, but Laporte, has come in for the last 2 games. He played yesterday as well, and he has looked quite good. It looked good versus Albania as well, and so, the bench can maybe be a concern, though. If they need a goal, where would they go? They have Fermin Lopez, but he hasn't gotten minutes yet. Danny Olmo apparently played yesterday and had an assist for the goal. Ferran Torres actually scored the goal. So those are kind of your options. Iosi Perez was able to come on in the second half of this game, but it looks like he's possibly injured. But that would maybe be if you have to take Murata off and you're chasing a goal, where would you go? But other than that, that's not really Spain really have been probably the most impressive side. And this game, especially this game, because again, no one really does feel invincible. So I mentioned how that's possibly where you can look at. There were a couple of times where Italy were able to get in some dangerous moments, but it's just they were lacking a little bit with the final limb product. So I thought they struggled with a counter threat. Even the few times they were able to break through. I mean, Spain out of possession were amazing at swarming the ball. Uh, but just the few times they were able to get through, either it was DeMarco or someone else, the service would be poor. Another thing too is I thought the way that Spain were just really using Pedri to just bully Jorginho. Jorginho had no idea who to mark. Pedri was doing very well to just find pockets to either receive the ball or to draw people near him to create spaces for others. Fabian Ruiz or Rodri, they're not just passers. When they get the ball, they can also turn and actually carry the ball into space. They're fine. Everyone on that team is fine with the ball at their feet, whether or not it's going forward with it or passing with it. And I think that's maybe the difference of the Spanish on the Spanish side that I've seen from past ones. That's the reason why I really like them coming into the tournament. Is they're not this tiki taka stuff where they have to get the ball out of their feet after 1 to 2 touch, regardless of where you're going or not. Another thing too is they're not afraid to kick it long, whether or not whether or not into the box, whether or not from goal kicks, whether or not up the middle with Morata or with the Fabian Ruiz and Rodri, or out wide. Just they have a directness to the play. They can play through the middle. They can play out wide. They really are the full team as far as just their starting 11 goes. So Italy just could not cope with it at all. And it felt like Italy also just took too long on the ball. There would be a couple times when they were able to break through Spain's pressure, but by taking too long by what they wanted to do, they allowed Spain to recover. Spain were really good at recovering. Mark Cucurella was amazing at that. I figured maybe Chiesa versus Cucurella would actually be a way to get at them. And he did a very good job on Chiesa. So I just felt like Italy almost fell into the same trap that Croatia did. They tried to out Spain, and you can't really do that. Just out Spain on the ball, and just you can't do that, especially with no counter threat. Not in this kind of game anymore. That's what I'm noticing more and more, and we saw that yesterday with Croatia and Italy as well. So another thing too that was interesting or little of a talking point is Bastoni usually plays on the left for Inter Milan, and they've kind of moved him to the right part of the center back spot to make room for Calafiori, who is probably just as good as Bastoni on the left, and he was unlucky for the own goal, but he actually was quite good. He had a number of really good recoveries, and he was probably the best player on the ball in this game. But it just feels you're not getting the best out of Pistone, but playing on the right side. It's possible that because he's not used to playing there, maybe he didn't recognize when to help out on Di Lorenzo, because that really was a problem. The shape that they went with, Di Lorenzo was getting stuffed into a locker 1v1 every single time Nico Williams had the ball, and no one was able to help him out. So another thing too was this was a case where you really got to see this is the reason why you praise Alvaro Morata maybe more than you value him more than you would think, is because you see what Scamacca was doing versus Morata. Scamacca wasn't able to hold on to the ball or link play when his team needed to, when he needed him to, whereas Morata was brilliant at doing that. And so that's where Spain and Italy are, and then we get to Poland, and Austria. Poland do lose 3-1. Austria, Ragnick Ball, not only shows up when it comes to performances, to show up with the goals as well. So we get an early one with Tranier, early cross in that Tranier was able to head home, and then Piatek. Poland created a few chances leading up to this, so Poland actually felt like they were maybe had retaken the game. And after initial shots blocked, Piatek is able to collect a rebound, shifts it onto his left foot, and finds the corner with a second touch. That was good. So I think it's 1-1 going into halftime, and then Baumgartner in the 66th minute, where he was very lively with France as well, gets a great little threaded through ball by Alexander Prass, a little player that I spoke about in my preview show. So the interesting thing is Prass has been played almost as the left back, but it's a wonderful little through ball played out by him, and then it's a nice little dummy by Arnautovic that finds Baumgartner, and Baumgartner is able to finish, and then Arnautovic is able to get a pin, and it's just a direct ball from the keeper, one that Arnautovic is able to have a little flick over, and then Sabitzer is able to run in behind, and Sabitzer is able to beat the keeper and is able to draw the PK. Uh, Poland was able to feature Rapid Lewandowski a little bit in the second half, but Austria it did feel like they were the much better side. In truth, Poland are basically it feels like they're ruining that late goal that Ranghorst was able to score in the first game now, because Poland, I think, are maybe even knocked out now that they've lost their first two games. Or maybe they have a chance to they'll have to, I guess, beat France. But yeah, just that is unfortunate for them and Lewandowski. But Austria finally worthy of the praise that a lot of people were giving them to start the season, and or to start the tournament, and you saw it here. Then we get to Netherlands and France, and this should have been a game that should have been blockbuster. The way you saw the Spain and Italy game, and instead this one really petered out. It almost seemed like after like the 78th minute, both teams were fine with getting a draw. Uh, and Netherlands did actually score, but it was ruled out for an offsides where the keeper's vision was deemed to be blocked. France without Mbappe was not enjoyable. So there was some of that. Griezmann with two missed chances. I thought Rabiot actually was maybe responsible for one of them, where Rabiot was basically 5 yards from goal and instead tried to go for the weird square pass last minute. I think it maybe he surprised Griezmann, where instead he should have gone for goal himself. But a very strange midfield to see Tchouaméni back in the side, play with Rabiot and Kante. It wasn't necessarily bad, but it was a little bit surprising. Marcus Thuram, I thought, did play better in this game, but it feels like all of his good moments were connecting. He had some clever flicks into the box to set others up. He wasn't necessarily creating for himself. I never really saw him with a finish in him, and so that's kind of the issue where you're going to go for your goals. We haven't necessarily seen that. I thought Dembele continued to struggle a little bit for me too. And then Netherlands, it just felt like both teams were fine, just kind of accepting it. Netherlands didn't really offer much in the second half either after their goals ruled out. So I don't think it bothers them that much. Both get 4 points and both are able to advance. So um, and then we have Slovakia and Ukraine. Ukraine do go on to win 2-1. So get back into the tournament, where Shranz is able to get the first goal, where Zinchenko just loses his man on a back post. I think it's a throw in just taken quickly, and David Hackno is able to get to the byline, has a nice little float across in. But then Sherepenko is able to get them back into the game. 54th minute, Zinchenko joins in the attack, so he helps rectify that earlier mistake. And Zinchenko was probably man of the match, and the way that the game ended. So much better in the second half, especially when he has the ball at his feet. He really is magical. And he's able to join the attack. He's a late run on the wing. And then he has the ball that fires in a great ball into the box that Sherepenko is able to put away. And then Yamachuk in the 80th minute, lovely ball over the top by Sherepenko, finds Yamachuk in the box, and he has been able to slip the ball in past the keeper. So really good response by Ukraine, like I said. And they really couldn't afford to lose the opening two games, and they were losing here. Lunin bench for Benfica's Antonali Tribin. Bit of a surprise there. Tribin had a good game. But it's not. It's also not the end of the world for Slovakia either. It's just one of those cases where this is the one group where everyone's decided to win a game. You're going into the third, and then we get to Georgia and Czechia, where they both draw. where Mitsuzaki gets another goal with a PK or with a pin. Basically, or I think basically it's a free kick that like bounces off and touches an outstretched hand, and then they get a pin that way. So he's able to put it away. And then Schick after the 59th minute, after being basically denied a goal earlier in the first half for a handball in the build-up. So Czechia get back in. I think it's even with a corner kick. And Georgia were definitely outplayed, though, this game. Czechia with an XG of over four big chances and 27 shots, and forced just five. But it doesn't matter because they both get a point, both able to survive. At least until the final week or final match day, and then we get Turkey and Portugal. No Odegaard this time, and no fun for him. No fun for Turkey. First goal with Bernardo Silva, great little play by Leao. He did feel like he was much better in this game. Maybe going against a different fullback than Vladimir Sufal maybe played a role in that. I don't know. And then really the game just went away from them after they conceded their own goal, where just a poor pass back where the keeper was just surprised by it, goes past him, own goal, and then they get the third with Bruno Fernandes, where Cristiano Ronaldo of all people has he's in on goal, and then he decides to square it to his friend Bruno. So yeah, I think it's a great mix of Portugal just being significantly better than Turkey, or being significantly better than the first game, but Turkey probably also being worse opponents. But I think Roberto Martinez did do better to make his changes. I thought I thought Cancelo would just seemed better as a right back than left back, inverted. I feel like that was a role here. Vitinha wasn't just by himself; he's played with Paulinho, so I thought the shape just felt. I thought the shape did feel better. It was still Bernardo Silva and Bruno. Kind of mixing a little bit, but Bruno has been very good. He's been good for Portugal for like 2 years now, and he's been very good in the tournament. So there you go. Portugal are going to be one of the ones that's talked about to actually win the whole thing. So there's no reason for them to maybe they just got the first the bad game out of the way for the first one. We'll have to see. And then Belgium and Romania, and this is the game that again Lukaku probably could have scored 3 goals here. Probably could have scored 3 goals in the first one. So, but it doesn't matter because they are able to win 2-0 with Tielemans in the second minute. Basically, great setup by Doku. Doku had a lot of fun in this game. Just maybe taking on the whoever the Romania right back was. Did not enjoy going against Doku because Doku was getting past him for fun. Either going. Even going to the byline or cutting inside him, he was just Doku was having his way with him. So here is a nice little setup by Doku. Finds Lukaku. Lukaku sets it up for has a little cutback ball or has a little layoff ball to Tielemans. Tielemans has a nice little hit, and then Kevin De Bruyne after Belgium just go long, and this happens after basically Lukaku has been denied a 1v1 goal set up by Kevin De Bruyne. So probably a little annoying there. So he set him up, and that was taken off. But then Kevin De Bruyne was able to finish at the very end with a nice little. Not something you expect. Belgium go long, and it's Kevin De Bruyne of all people that's able to be in the box and able to have that finish. Kevin De Bruyne was very good again. But again, different shape. They switched to a back three. Maybe gave Ralph Hayes a little more protection. I thought Tielemans was better with Onana, so that was a little bit better. But maybe the negative was Luca Bacchio. I thought he wasted too many chances. So and then when Trussell came on, it didn't feel like he was necessarily much better. So surprised we didn't see Opendana played again. So again, good way for Belgium to bounce back. But if they played like they did the first game, they could still be out of this. So we'll have to see what they do versus. I think it's Ukraine. Yeah, their final game is versus Ukraine. So maybe they can both play to a draw, and that would probably see them through. But if either lose that game, it could be bad for them. So we'll have to see. And then Georgia, and then Germany and Switzerland, or I guess it'll come down to goal difference. Someone, no matter what's going to get, everyone's going to get 4 points somewhere. And we get to the final game with final round with Germany and Switzerland, where Ndoye and Fulkrig in the 91st minute, Switzerland nearly with the upset to win the group. And it was a terrific game plan to take Cruz out of the game. They used Ndoye and Bobo, and it just felt like Freuler just worked that right side of Kimmich and Rudiger out of possession. Really frustrated them both. Got the counter goal they wanted. Nearly got the second goal, only for VAR to reverse it. So that was unfortunate there. And it was also Germany got the first goal with Anderlecht, but that was ruled out for I think, a foul on Musiala, so that was unfortunate for them. They actually get the first goal with basically forcing Tony Cruz to play a kind of a hospital pass to Musiala. Musiala's not able to control it. They were able to turn him over. That's how they were able to get that goal as well. So just a really frustrating draw for German fans. Another, it was a case where we saw maybe Watson Musiala could look a little disjointed. I thought Havertz was isolated. I thought Havertz didn't necessarily have his best game. And then we saw the changes. We saw Milstead come on for David Rams, the one that actually ended up having the key pass or the key cross for the Volker goal. We saw Todd taken off for Schlotterbeck, someone that's a little bit better with the ball at his feet, in my opinion. We saw Maximin Beer of Hoffenheim, play alongside with Havertz. And we saw Fulkrug, come in. So it almost seemed like he brought in a lot of people to win some crosses, and basically that's what they ended up scoring on. Uh, and I felt like maybe after those changes, Germany did have more runners upfield, and it felt like they switched defenders a little bit maybe better with better being upfield, having a little bit more delivery. But there were cracks shown a little bit in this game, and Switzerland definitely enjoying the fruits of the Bologna season with. Abashir, apparently Indori was also a player that had a good season for them for Bologna, helped them get Champions League, and then Freuler as well. And then Granit Xhaka probably man of the match. So just man and Mark and Tony Cruz, just a really good game plan by Switzerland, and pretty cool to see. We've seen basically three different games, three different styles of Switzerland. No Xherdan Shaqiri that played in this game, and he was the hero versus Scotland. So they were very good. They were very good in this game, and I think they've drawn possibly Italy for their next round. So we'll see if they're able to do a little bit better than they did in the World Cup when they got destroyed by Portugal 2 years ago. So we'll see what Switzerland has to offer us. And then Hungary beat Scotland basically at the very last kick of the game. Nothing to really talk about this game. They said something like only 5 touches combined in the penalty area for both teams. Both teams are very negative and very, very poor. Where Kevin Shoboth, I can't really say names, in like the 98 plus 10 minute after Scotland have a corner kick, and they were able to basically Hungary was able to counter on the corner kick. And then Spain beat Albania 1-0 with a heavily rotated lineup, so that's really good if you're a Spanish side or Spanish fan. Rodri, Pedri, Nico Williams all given rest. A little injury to Nacho could maybe be a concern, but Laporte's been able to come in and feature and play pretty well as well. Goal from Ferran Torres, and nice little through ball by Danny Olmo. And then Italy break Luka Modric's heart at the very last minute to equalize 1-1. Croatia get the first goal finally after they got a PK in like the 68th minute where it felt like it was a little harsh, but there was just a cross into the box where the hand is kind of outstretched. So the right call. And Modric with the PK, he's actually not had the best luck with PKs for the last calendar year. I feel like he missed one versus Spain in the Nations League final, and I felt like he missed one for Real Madrid versus Man City, and he missed one here. The keeper guesses right, but it's a fairly easy save. I feel like it's weak a little bit to the left. It's amazing save by Donnarumma still, but it doesn't really matter because he's able to get an open play goal just a few seconds after that, where Budimir had come in as a sub, and he's impeccable. They finally have someone they have a target man to actually cross something into the box, and he's able to win the header. I think it's a save that forces a save that Donnarumma has to make, and then Donnarumma can only spill it, and Modric is able to get the rebound past him. But then it's very, very strange because something like 8 minutes were added in extra time. I didn't really understand where that came from. We haven't really seen that a lot this Euros. We saw that a lot in the World Cup 2 years ago. We haven't really seen that so far here. So that was a lot of extra added time, in my opinion. And it got to a point where uh, Croatia had been, in my opinion, very negative throughout the whole game, and then they started to maybe I don't know if they were chasing necessarily a second goal, but they started to go a little more forward with the ball, and they started to Perisic had a ball that just he had a chance to easily just kind of collect, and he instead just was a little wayward with it, just a rash hit over the goal that basically went to no one, giving possession away. They were doing that a couple of times, and Italy were able to. Basically create a little transition themselves where California was able to get onto a loose ball out of nowhere, and he's able to carry it upfield, and then he's able to takes another little touch, and then he's able to pass it out wide, and a sub that had just come on, Matea Zakangani, I can't say names. Was able to have a wonderful bend on a shot to go past Livakovic, having no chance. Livakovic dives, and it's almost like a show me dive, and Man, and very nice bounce back for Calafiore because, he had their own goal, versus Spain. It looks like Italy did kinda change things up a little bit. They almost went to a back 3. They played almost a very negative, kind of a 3-5-2 kind of shape. And, Italy were not very good, on the ball, either. This was a very, very dull game, to be honest, so but, and it is unfortunate that it possibly knocks Croatia out. I mean, it feels like they need England to win by 3 goals. That could possibly happen. We'll have to see. They haven't shown the case of being able to do that, but we'll have to see. Um, I think they need Turkey to win. Turkey are playing uh, I forget who they're probably up against. It won't be Germany. It's possibly a Czech Republic. Um, possible that can happen. They need Denmark to win, and I think they need Georgia to draw. Maybe there's something else to go their way. But yeah, the game versus Albania really did them in. But just the Brozovic, Modric, and Kovacic midfield three did not work at all versus Albania. And the manager saw that and made those changes in the second half of the Albania game, and I'm just really surprised that we saw that again for this game. He made some changes to the front line, but the changes he made were almost negative. He took off Lavar Maillard, brought on Lukic, and he played Kramaric almost through the center striker spot. Um, and just it felt there was no pace inside at all. And then you finally brought on Brunamir, and Brunamir was able to at least offer you some kind of target in the box. But I was surprised we didn't see Pekovic, and Perisic didn't even start the game, and then came on and actually was quite poor. But they never had anyone to offer them any kind of pace, and I feel like that was just begging for trouble. The idea of just trying to keep the ball and just kind of wait it out after you had the goal ended up just biting them a little bit at the end. Italy weren't able to really do much for the game either. It didn't necessarily feel like they deserved to advance or win, but they were able to create a little quality at the end, and it really was a fantastic hit. So there you go, and that's kind of just where we are for Euros, and then I'll get to USA and Bolivia. I'm not going to necessarily do an advanced kind of rundown because we have gone a little overboard. USA do win 2-0. Felt like it could have been a little bit more with the goal from Pulisic. Nice little start, you can say, because the goal came like 90 seconds into the game after a little short corner kick taken. Pulisic gets the ball and has a couple touches and just has an amazing hit. Just a terrific hit to find the corner. But it was nice how they got the corner kick too. Nice little run by Balogun was kind of in the build up and set this up. And then, yeah, Pulisic goes basically upper 90, 90 seconds into the game. We had a couple chances like really early on though. There was a chance that Balogun had where I think it's like Joe Scally has a shot that's almost like deflects into Balogun's path. I think he's just kind of surprised by it. But, better touch. He probably scores there. That was in the first like 60 seconds of the game. So really good start for the U.S. And then there was a big chance for Tim Weah. A great little through ball by Gio Reyna set this up. So Gio has the through ball that finds Balogun, who then finds Pulisic, and Pulisic plays it out wide to Weah. And then the keeper makes a save, but then Weah did have the angle against him. But I want to highlight that because the little through this chance came because of the little through ball that Gio Reyna played. He was doing that a lot, and it felt like the announcers weren't necessarily calling that out, or there were a lot of people online that were saying Gio Reyna wasn't necessarily having a good game. I thought that was hogwash. I thought Gio Reyna was doing quite good, in my opinion. So wanted to highlight that, and I'll highlight some other things that he did. And then we have a couple other chances. So we have one for Balogun as well. Good long diagonal ball played by Tyler Adams, finds Tim Weah, across into the box, finds Balogun, but it's blocked last second by the defender. And then we have a big chance for Balogun as well. So Matt Turner then here does well to find McKinney's feet. So he doesn't just clear the ball to go long. Matt Turner does well to find McKinney. McKinney finds Scally, who does well to advance the ball. It finds a little kind of upfield, finds a little gap upfield. Plays it back to McKinney, who then a switch to Balogun and the left side of the Bolivia box. Balogun has options, and he tries to go for goal himself. Or instead of going for goal himself, basically plays a weak cross. So I wanted to highlight this because it felt like he recognized he maybe should have gone for goal here because he gets a chance basically, a few minutes after that, and he bears it. So Pulisic here has found himself centrally, almost in the 10 role. It gets the ball on the turn. Again, it's a lovely find by Gio Reyna. So G-Rated picks out the pass, gets it to Pulisic, and Pulisic is able to get the ball in the turn, plays it out wide to Balogun. So very similar spot to Balogun found himself just a few minutes ago. And here, Balogun's way more decisive. He decides to get the ball into his left foot, and then he's able to take a touch and find the corner with his left foot. So really good finish with his weak foot to find the corner. And there you go, 2-0 at halftime. It could have been a little bit better, but it wasn't a little sloppy in the beginning, but it wasn't terrible. There was only 7 shots though. That was the only thing I was a little concerned about because you had a lot of, especially the way they started. It felt like it did feel a little flat after that. That can sometimes happen, first game into a tournament. Lots of possession. Didn't feel like Bolivia was really doing any kind of threat at all. So only 7 shots was a little disappointing. I didn't feel like that was necessarily great. It didn't necessarily. There was a little disjointedness. I felt to me they were maybe missing a little bit what Serginho Dest would have offered instead of Scally. Just being able to offer a little bit more on that right side. So I thought we may be missing a little bit of that. Balogun had some heavy touches that wasn't necessarily great. I thought Weston McKennie as well didn't necessarily have his best. He wasn't necessarily as fluid. Tyler Adams as well. I thought was getting lucky with a couple heavy touches where maybe better teams would have punished that. So I thought maybe Giorena had a little bit of a deeper role. Maybe it gave it a little bit more to McKennie, but it was almost like a fluid 4-3-3. It wasn't really a 4-2-3-1. Um, so it was almost like Tyler Adams, almost like the basically the number 6, and you had McKinney and then Gio Reyna as your 2 8s. But I just thought it took a while for things to actually pop into life. But I thought after like 20 minutes or so, you start to see Gio Reyna get on the ball a little bit more, and I thought that coincided with us playing a little bit better. He created two really good scoring situations. He also created two yellow cards that were drawn with some clever runs and dribbles, and just he seemed really good getting the ball on the turn and I just thought it was all positive. And then second half notes, Tyler Adams immediately was subbed off for Yunus Musa. Apparently, it was a planned sub. Bolivia gets a first shot to finally test Turner after a giveaway, and that can be a little bit of a theme that happened here. We started to get a little bit sloppy in the second half, and then Balogun scores a second, but it's a fraction offside. But I want to highlight this because probably the best moment McKinney had, where McKinney and Wade with 2-man action. Weah has a back heel that plays it to McKinney, who carries it into the box and then plays it to Weah. Weah squares it to Balogun for the easy put away, but Weah was offsides. But even before that, the build up to this was really good, starting from Turner, and they're able to, I think even Skelly has a little bit of a touch. They're just the way the U.S. were able to play this upfield. This kind of action reminded me of what we did versus Brazil. Just the quick movement, the connections, the combination play. It was all very very good, and just his fortune didn't count. But that to me, I think was the most positive. Just we didn't necessarily see enough of that. And then we see Pulisic creating a little shooting opportunity. He goes past people with a drop of the shoulder. So Pulisic was quite good. Not just for the early goal. He created a number of really good moments. Really really lively, which is really really good to see. The only negative was maybe the announcers mentioned he was limping a little bit towards the second half. So uh, that definitely would be would set us down a peg because I don't know where we necessarily go without him. I don't really think we have like for like. There's someone like a Haji Wright, but it's not like for like. I don't think Ayrton can necessarily do a job either. So that could be maybe something to look at. I thought his set piece delivery was maybe a little bit improved. At least it wasn't necessarily hitting the first man. It seems like he's going to be the one that takes our set piece kicks. And then we see some changes where Balogun came off, Pepe on, Jay ran off for Johnny Cardoza on. I was one of the ones wondering that maybe Pepe should have started because he figured with a lot of the ball and the way that we like to do it, a lot of crosses, Pepe would probably be. I think Pepe was maybe our better finisher. Coming into the game, I was kind of talking about that online. And, man, did I have to eat my words a little bit. I even, like, texted that to my friends, and, they made me eat my words as well because as we see, Pepe got his chances to show off his finishing ability, and, he really did whiff. So, I mean, in the first he could have scored the first touch of the game. 30 seconds in, he doesn't necessarily have to score here because he has just come on, but the chance is so good. It's such a good cross by Anthony Robinson at a minimum, put it on goal and make a keeper make a save. If you hit it right to the keeper, I think that is understandable. That's totally defendable. But he gets it all wrong and he almost like slices it a little bit and just misses it wide. And then we have another chance. There's a chance for Pulisic here. I mean, the chances just came in the second half. Pulisic back post wide wide open. Doesn't get the contact he wanted, but it's a great cross in by Scally. So we see a cross in by Robinson. Now we see a pretty good cross in by Scally. Didn't feel like we necessarily saw enough, but we did see Scally kind of grow a little bit more in confidence as the game went on. So that could be a positive. I mentioned how not having depth could be an issue, but at least because against teams sitting in playing deeper, you need your fullbacks to at least at a minimum uh, offer some good service with a cross. So at least we saw a little of that. Then we see Tim Ray having a lovely turn, having a lovely turn that has a through ball to Pepe. That's blocked at the last minute, so that wasn't on Pepe, but it was a pretty good run. I like the clever movement created by here. Pepe did feel like he was almost like Dorian Nunes, like in that respect. Maybe not as athletic as you obviously, but just in terms of he is a chance creator. Chance his movement creates us a lot of chances. It's just the end product, at least in this game, was severely lacking. And as we saw for Uruguay in their game, it was very similar. Where Darwin Nunez missed a boatload of chances too before scoring a banger. Um, but then we start to see Bolivia get a couple looks. So the first one was just a poor giveaway that they were able to create into a shot. It was right at Matt Turner, so not really a lot of danger, but just they were able to get something on goal, and then they get another one here, where it's a really poor pass by Chris Richards right to someone, and against a better team, that probably is punished a little bit more. So something to look at. Then there were two times where Richards was caught on the ball, so that was just with a poor pass. Then Richards was caught on the ball. Musa had to bail him out, and then Tim Ream almost a couple minutes later was likewise. Tim Ream took too much time on the ball, basically lost it, and again, better teams do punish that. So that was a little nervy. And then we get to the big chances where Pepe just comes to love life for the opposite reasons. So Pulisic does great to just kind of run onto a long ball into the box, plays a square ball where Pepe gets a good strike on it. This one is at least right at the keeper, so at least this one is on goal. But it just feels like if you pick a corner, it's going to go in. He really did have three or four chances to add to the scoreline, and just a couple were within 6 yards away from the goal, and just both were hit at the keeper just for a simple save instead of finding the corner. So that's just kind of where we were. Copa is finally here, and we didn't really see any kind of change. So one thing I can say is at least Berhalter was able to get minutes. Mostly, I guess the one change was Adams immediately coming in for instead of Johnny Cardoza or even Giannis Musa. That was really the only change from what we saw from versus Brazil. Other than that, it was the same 11 that we saw. And it wasn't. It was okay. I'll put it that way. I mean, the scoreline could have been better. Uh, I don't necessarily know if how much it's going to matter necessarily for goal differential, where I don't really feel like we're going to beat Uruguay or tie them anyways. But that could come into play a little bit. I do feel like better teams are probably going to look at us with Ream, in my opinion, and that is still what I saw as far as things that could be a little dangerous to me is in my opinion, if I'm trying to mark this, if I'm scouting this team, I would immediately look at Giorena, try to take him out. I would even put two people on him. Make Adams beat you with a pass because Adams is good at keeping the ball, but he's almost like our Declan Rice in my opinion. Not to necessarily make that comparison, but it feels similar. He's not Adams is not going to go forward with it unless this pass is fully on. I feel like McKennie can have a heavy touch here and there. Uh, and if you can get the way we use Anthony Robinson, he really is our winger. Again, on any kind of turnover, Tim Ream is going to be susceptible to someone running behind him. So, is that someone that if someone like Panama have Joel Campbell? And Campbell is in his mid-30s, but he still has some legs at him. Do they look to maybe exploit that? We'll have to see. But that's kind of just where we are. I mean, the scoreline could have been worse than it was, or higher than it was. Couple really big missed opportunities, but I think maybe the one kind of negative was Pepe did kind of blow a chance here. Just personally for himself because the had he scored like a hat trick, he probably would have started versus Panama. It would have been hard to drop him, and instead the opposite because Balogun scored. He was able to put his chance away. But I thought Balogun was kind of he felt a little nervy too. We were really struggling. We were struggling to find him a little bit, and when he was getting the ball, felt isolated. Felt like he was kind of struggling for confidence himself. Maybe the goal will change that a little bit, but it just felt, it didn't it felt a little disjointed, to be honest. Only Pulisic really knew what he wanted to do, or Weah. Weah was good, at least in the second half. Weah was quite good at combining with, Weston McKennie. At least, there was some of that. There were a couple of times Weah, the few times when he was able to get into the box, his finish was lacking a little bit, but I thought Weah was at least he knew what he wanted to do as well. Just I thought Balogun was taking a little too slow, in that respect, and when Pepe came on, Pepe made some pretty good runs, had some pretty good movement, had some decent touches, to set up, chances, and just, just the finishing was lacking. So, uh, does that turn around? I don't really know. I just went through a season watching Darwin Núñez do that for a whole season, so maybe it can. I can't really say. The clean sheet was positive. You can't say that. I think the amount of poor giveaways though was worrying. Bolivia aren't going to be a team that causes forces those errors. A better team, I think, would. So that would be something to look at. 20 shots, 8 on target. Bolivia with 8 and 3 big chances for us. All came in the second half. 13 shots in the second half as well. Passing probably what you would expect for 83%. Could be a lower percentage. But like I said, we were a little sloppy in the second half. 25 crosses. That is Berhalter ball. That is what we did in the World Cup, and it almost seems like the difference of what we've done since since Qatar is now we're playing Gio Reyna. But two is we actually have a striker where before we were doing like Josh Sargent false nine stuff, or we were doing Jesus Ferreira. Now we have someone there at least. If we do a cross into the box, we have someone to aim at. And that's where I feel like if we're going to play that way, I do feel like Pepe does suit that more than Balogun. But Balogun's got to do a better job finishing, or I can't justify him starting. So yeah, first game, 3 points. And I think the way the schedule is quite fitting, or quite benefiting. Because not only do we get to play Panama before Uruguay, Panama just played Uruguay, and Panama probably could be exhausted after playing Beasley ball for 90 minutes. So and we get maybe a little break there, but we'll have to see where maybe the Uruguay game can just be a bonus to advance. Or if you're able to get 2 wins in the first 2 games, maybe have a better mindset. Maybe go for the win. Win the group. Why not? So we haven't really seen Berhalter get a marquee win. That would be beating Uruguay, at least the way they looked in the first game. That would definitely be a marquee win. Uruguay missed like 10 chances, as well. Maybe not necessarily that much, but it was only a 1-0 game going into the 85th minute. That it could have been 7-0. Before that, Uruguay were just amazing at creating chances, amazing at creating turnovers. They were impressive, and so we'll see what they have to offer. Uh, as far as just kind of tactics going into this, I thought it was interesting how Berhalter gave an interview afterwards saying that they intentionally designed the game plan to go long, lots of balls upfield to contest long balls that way, didn't necessarily play through Bolivia. That doesn't inspire confidence to me because I don't really see Bolivia being like that hard to pass through. So it felt like that was a bit of a strange thing to admit. As far as positives to talk about, got to talk about Christian Pulisic. If we're going to do anything in this tournament, he's going to have a big tournament. So he started off well. Gioreta, though, is really the other one. He feels like he's been given a different role, but he's also really good at that role. I also think he's doing a better job. Not just he's doing well to offer us offensive contributions, but he's doing, in my opinion, very very good defensively. He's been a rock. He's winning duels. He's winning the ball back. He's recovering. I feel like his energy levels are fantastic. Now he hasn't played a lot of football. He hasn't gotten a lot of minutes in the legs the last season or so. Maybe but he doesn't look rusty. He's used that for motivation almost. Man, has he looked good, and sky's the limit for this guy, really. To be honest, and I used to think he was only kind of a number 10 player. No, players I don't really love. It looks like he can play anywhere. And just someone that's that good with the ball at their feet, that knows what to do with the pass, can get it on the turn. Can find that threaded ball in. And that he those kind of players helps any team really. So it's great to see that he's finally in the side. We didn't play him in Qatar as Fox decided to remind everyone of why that happened, which I didn't think was great for vibes. Anthony Robinson, once Pepe came on, I thought he got a little bit more involved. Could have been an issue of just maybe they just felt Bolivia were tired at that point, but felt like Robinson was making more efforts, more sprints going upfield. He had a couple really nice crosses that basically created chances. I mean, we have to do that because Robinson only does that. He's not going to offer anything else in the final third, but he does have a good delivery on him. Uh, but that is kind of risky. Can other teams are going to look at that and think that you can when Robinson goes up to do that run. He's leaving a space. That space is open, and Tim Reeves not going to be able to close that down. So uh, yeah, it's give and take. It really is. Sometimes that can help you. Sometimes I think it hurts you. Uh, One thing I am wondering about is why did we basically create like 4 or 5 like really good quality chances after Pepe came on after like the 65th minute. Uh, because it wasn't just Pepe. Weah and Pulisic got clean looks into the box too. Was it just coincidence? Was Bolivia just being tired? Were they just giving up? Were they poor? Was it something that Pepe offered as far as better movement than necessarily Balkan was doing? I don't really know. I didn't necessarily rewatch it one time, or I didn't necessarily rewatch it. I did like watch like the highlights on YouTube. Uh, so I can't really say, but that is something that a little bit is in the back of my mind. And then I mentioned Tim Ream and Richards, on the ball play was a little bit of an issue, as was Pepe, not being able to finish. So we'll see what they do with Panama, coming up next. Uh, One thing I think that is interesting is Panama were better than expected on the ball, and they had willing runners to go upfield, and they've got someone like a Coco Cavascalia, who is good as advertised as their central midfielder, to be fine being pressed, and then he's got the ability to play those passes. So if our center backs play those sloppy passes, Panama might have the pace and speed to punish that, but also. The way that Nunez was able to get in behind them, can Balogun maybe do that as well? So we'll see. There's big opportunity to maybe even qualify before even the Uruguay games. We need to take it. So we'll see if we do that, and I'll be back to talk after that game. Probably won't necessarily cover. Maybe I'll cover a little bit what happens at the end of yours. We'll see. It did go a little longer than I wanted to. It's not too bad. So, anyways, well, yeah, I'll probably talk about what happens with England because that's always fun to do. So that'll probably be what I set up for the next show. So yeah, USA and England, like it did here. And so until then, you stay squatted and stop recording.